Chapter 407. The three devil cultivators looked back nervously from time to time. Seeing that the four of them didn't respond, the strong devil cultivator said anxiously, "Fellow Taoists, it'll be too late if you hesitate." He was about to approach the four of them. Nie Wuxiang raised her hand and blocked their way. The strong devil cultivator said anxiously, "What do you mean?" Nie Wuxiang glanced at them and said indifferently, "Why should we believe you?" "You?" Her attitude wasn't polite at all. The strong devil cultivator widened his eyes and looked angry. "Big brother?" The two devil cultivators behind him reminded him in a low voice, "Now's not the time to fight." The strong devil cultivator's face turned red, but in the end he swallowed his anger and said, "Fellow Taoist, the three of us found a monster here. This monster is very powerful and cruel. The three of us were no match for it when we encountered it. Although there are four of you, you're definitely no match for it. It's better for us to join forces." "Monster?" Mo Chinga raised her eyebrows and said, "What monster? Why didn't I feel it?" Her divine sense wasn't weak, so there was no reason she couldn't feel anything. "Fellow Taoists, please believe us." An early-stage core formation cultivator behind the strong devil cultivator said eagerly, "Just an hour ago we passed the first test. Not long after we arrived here we encountered a monster. We couldn't feel its momentum, so we took it lightly in the beginning. But when we met face to face we couldn't resist it at all." Mo Chinga and Nie Wuxiang glanced at each other and saw astonishment in each other's eyes. "Fellow Taoists, what does the monster you're talking about look like?" Hearing Mo Chinga's gentle voice, their attitudes softened a bit. The three devil cultivators were overjoyed. The strong devil cultivator said, "This monster doesn't have a body. At first glance it looks like a strange aura. When we passed the first test, our devil aura was exhausted and hadn't fully recovered. When we encountered this monster we wanted to repel it, but no matter what secret technique or magic weapon we used, we couldn't disperse it. Our devil aura was even absorbed." Mo Chinga's and the others' expressions changed slightly. A thought flashed in Mo Chinga's mind as she paid attention to the message. So to say, after you entered the secret place, you couldn't recover the devil aura inside your bodies on your own? The burly devil cultivator hesitated for a moment before nodding. Yes. This matter couldn't be hidden from others. The three of them could tell at a glance. Mo Chinga and Nie Wuxiang glanced at each other. Both of them showed expressions of, "as expected." "Other than that, did you notice anything unusual?" The burly man was stunned and confused. "What does fellow Taoist mean?" "What I mean is, don't you think there's something strange about this secret place?" "Strange?" The brawny man was dumbfounded. He didn't say it was strange, but a monster. What was going on? "Big brother." An early core formation realm cultivator behind him whispered, "Now that you mention it, I do feel a little strange." Mo Chinga shifted her gaze towards the cultivator who looked a bit scared. "Fellow Taoist, what did you notice?" That person glanced at the burly man in the lead. Seeing that he had no intention of stopping them, he said, "I feel that the divine ability of this secret place isn't mysterious enough." Mo Chinga's eyes brightened. She didn't expect this timid cultivator to have such insight. The burly man frowned and glared at him unhappily. "What's so strange about that? Maybe the divine ability of this secret place isn't that powerful." "That's right. Besides, Big Brother even used his trump card to protect us." Another early core formation devil cultivator chimed in. "But..." The devil cultivator objected in a low voice, but even he himself wasn't confident. He only managed to say two words before he saw the burly man's expression and swallowed the rest of his words. Mo Chinga frowned and said, "This matter is very important. Please tell us the truth." As she spoke, she cast a glance at the burly man in the lead. Upon hearing her firm tone, the burly man hesitated for a moment, but in the end he asked, "Did you notice something wrong?" Before Mo Chinga could say anything, Nie Wuxiang already took a step forward. She stretched out her claw, wanting to lift the man's sleeve. The burly man was startled. He abruptly retreated, took out his magic weapon and shouted, "What do you want to do?" Nie Wuxiang didn't say anything. Her figure moved and she was already close to the burly man. At such a close distance, who could move faster than a martial cultivator? The burly man only felt the hem of his robe move, and something was already hooked off. The puppet fell to the ground with a bang. Nie Wuxiang glanced at Mo Chinga. Mo Chinga understood, so she released Xiaohua again and patted its head. "Xiaohua, use fire to burn it." "You?" Seeing that they didn't seem hostile, the burly man was puzzled. "What's wrong with this thing?" Mo Chinga and Nie Wuxiang didn't answer. They would soon know the answer. After burning the puppet's surface, sure enough, there was a magic crystal inside. The three devil cultivators' expressions suddenly changed when they saw this thing. It seems you know what this thing is. Nye Wuxiang coldly stared at the three devil cultivators' expressions. Now you know how serious the matter is, right? After you entered the secret place, tell me everything in detail about what happened. When they finally reacted, the other two devil cultivators hurriedly threw away the puppets they wore on their bodies and looked at the burly man in the lead. Big brother, this? The burly man's complexion alternated between green and white. He looked at the magic crystal on the ground and then at Emo Tienga and Nye Wuxiang's expressions. He clenched his teeth and said, Mei Feng. Turns out she was just fooling us. Although we three brothers are only core formation cultivators, our Black Mountain City isn't that easy to bully. It seemed the three of them also had a backer, which confirmed Yong Ryu's words. Although their cultivation levels weren't high, core formation cultivators like them couldn't afford to offend people in Descending Star City. The burly man turned towards Emo Tienga and the others. His attitude immediately became a lot friendlier, unlike before when he was forced by the situation and had no other choice. Fellow Taoists, we offended you earlier. If it weren't for your reminder, I'm afraid we brothers would have fallen into someone's trap today. The burly man raised his hand to greet them. My name is Jin Shi, and these are my two brothers Mushi and Yugue. We're cultivators from Black Mountain City. Emo Tienga had heard that Black Mountain City was one of the northern Chilean country's 7 small devil domains. At this moment, the four of them returned the greeting and reported their names. After the formal greeting, Jin Shi impatiently asked, Fellow Taoists, how did you find this magic crystal? That's unexpected. Emo Tienga changed the topic and asked, This? Fellow Taoist Mushi, what did you think was strange before? This is an important matter, so please explain it to us one by one. Of course. Now that he had obtained Jin Shi's permission, this devil path cultivator called Mushi no longer had any scruples. He spoke frankly with assurance. First of all, among the three of us, apart from Big Brother who has a high cultivation level, Yugue and I only have ordinary strength. We originally thought we wouldn't be able to pass the first test, but in the end it was more daunting than dangerous. After we passed the test, I thought about it carefully and realized that although the first test seemed mysterious, its power was still lacking. Originally, Yugue and I couldn't go on, but the spell in the test suddenly weakened, as if it deliberately let us pass. Emo Tienga nodded. This Mushi was very meticulous. If it was someone careless, they might have skipped the test. Many people would casually find a reason when they encountered something unreasonable, telling themselves it should be reasonable. Secondly, after we passed the first test and entered this place, we've encountered several groups of people. In total, more than half of them passed the test. This is really unusual. Upon hearing this, Nye Wuxiang immediately interrupted him. Did you encounter other people? Yes. The one who answered was Jin Shi. When we arrived here we encountered 3 people in total. If we count the 7 of us there are 10 people in total, and this doesn't include those we didn't encounter. Nye Wuxiang looked at Emo Tienga. The two of them didn't know what to say. What did City Lord Mei warn them before this? She said the test in this ancient secret place was extremely difficult and that no one in Descending Star City could pass it. Although they only passed the first test, the difference in difficulty was too big. Of course, there was still one difficulty. Both spiritual aura and devil aura couldn't recover on their own. If this continued, it was very likely that none of them could pass the test. However, City Lord Mei didn't warn them about this at all. After a long silence, Yong Ryu, who hadn't said anything, finally spoke. Then what's the matter with the monster you mentioned before? Did you run away when you realized you couldn't defeat it? Did it chase after you? Aside from magic weapons being unable to deal with it, what characteristics did it have? The one who answered was still Mushi. He was obviously the most attentive among the 3 people. Not long after we arrived here we found that monster. At first, we thought it was the devil cultivator's test City Lord Mei talked about. However, after we approached it, we realized in just a few breaths' time that we couldn't judge the monster's strength by its aura. Since we couldn't defeat it, we ran away. The monster chased after us, but its speed wasn't fast. When we realized this, we felt relieved. However, it didn't take long for us to realize that although it was slow, its movements were mysterious and it actually chased after us. After that, no matter how long we ran, it would appear again. It was like a ghost that we couldn't shake off. An astonished expression appeared on Yong Ryu's face. There's actually such a strange thing in this world? Yes, Jin Shi said. That's why we can only call it a monster. We brothers are experienced and knowledgeable, but this is the first time we've seen this kind of thing. Right when we ran away we met a fellow devil cultivator. He didn't believe us but in just a few breaths' time he was swallowed by this monster. Not even a bit of him was left. He turned into a mass of devil aura and completely disappeared. Yong Ryu's expression changed. This, Emo Chinga and Nye Wuxiang also looked shocked. A core formation cultivator was swallowed in just a few breaths' time, and not even his bones were left. What kind of thing was this monster? Things are getting more and more complicated. After a long time, Emo Chinga scratched her head. While pondering she said slowly, a nascent soul cultivator who tricked us into a trap full of lies. Every one of us had devil crystals that could absorb spiritual aura that couldn't be recovered. Now there was also this kind of monster. What did City Lord May want to do? Chapter 408. No matter what City Lord May wanted to do, they were now turtles in a jar. If they wanted to escape they had to crawl out of the jar or break it. However, whether they wanted to crawl out or break the jar, it wasn't easy because the cultivation level of the person who set up the jar was much higher than theirs. Moreover, they were already trapped in the jar and were in an extremely passive position. Emo Chinga even thought that City Lord May might be watching them from the outside right now as if he was watching a fish in a fish tank. No matter how they swam, they couldn't escape from his palm. This kind of feeling was really unpleasant, but it was a fact that the other party's strength was higher than theirs, so they had no choice but to endure it. Fellow Taoist Qin, Yong Ryu whispered, "What should we do now?" "That monster." "That monster isn't a problem," Nye Wuxiang answered. "According to what these fellow Taoists said, no matter how we run, we'll be found eventually. That being the case, it's useless for us to run. Besides, its speed is slow, so even if we can't defeat it, we can still run. That being the case, we might as well wait here and see what that thing is. If we can't defeat it, it won't be too late to think of a way out." Emo Chinga expressed her approval. According to the description of these three devil cultivators, that monster really couldn't escape, so they could only do this. "Fellow Taoists, what do you think?" Jin Shi said, "Your decision is in line with mine." The three brothers' breaths were unstable and the devil aura inside their bodies was insufficient. They needed to rest for a while, even if it meant taking a few medicinal pills to replenish their devil aura. Since no one had any objections, the seven of them found a safe place to rest for the time being. Fellow Taoist Emo Chinga, who was sitting back to back with Nye Wuxiang in the passage, heard Nye Wuxiang's voice transmission. Emo Chinga, who was still meditating and adjusting her breath, answered softly. "Is it possible that City Lord May's purpose is related to that monster?" Nye Wuxiang's words made Emo Chinga pause. She thought for a moment then asked, "Why do you say that?" "City Lord May must know about that monster's existence. That being the case, why did he lure us here? Why did he want us to kill that thing? That's obviously impossible. According to what the three of them said, I'm afraid we're no match for this thing." Upon hearing what Nye Wuxiang said, a thought flashed through Emo Chinga's mind. "You're saying, he deceived us into coming here to feed that monster?" "Yes, that's possible." Nye Wuxiang said, "If this monster is his pet, then he has to find some food for it every once in a while." Emo Chinga suddenly felt her blood run cold. In that case, they weren't even fish but earthworms thrown into the fish tank for the fish to prey on. This. After thinking for a while, she composed herself and said, "It's not impossible. If this was the truth, then how could the magic crystal and the environment where spiritual energy could not be restored be explained? Also, if he only wanted to feed them, he could have just kidnapped the nomadic cultivators who were passing by the city. Why did he have to make a move on the completion-leveled cultivators? Wouldn't we be offending those major powers for no reason?" Nye Wuxiang was silent as if she was thinking. After a while she answered, "That monster's speed is very slow, so we'll be devoured in the end if we can't restore our spiritual energy. As for why he even targeted those core formation cultivators with extraordinary backgrounds, I think it's because he could only do it once. Moreover, just like we guessed, the benefits were so great that he didn't care about it at all. As for the magic crystal, I can't explain it." After all, this was just their speculation. Without enough information, it was impossible for them to miss out on anything. After a while, Nye Wuxiang still didn't get an answer from Emo Chinga, so she couldn't help but ask, "What about you? What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking whether that monster can be eliminated or not." Nye Wuxiang's spirit was lifted. "Can you think of a way?" "Devouring and absorbing devil aura. Logically speaking, spiritual aura is the same, right? And so if we encounter it, our spiritual aura will also be devoured. What if it's dead aura?" Nye Wuxiang was stunned. "This?" Emo Chinga sighed. It'd be easy if Ling Yunhe was here. Ling Yunhe's spiritual beast, the vulture, was full of dead aura. No matter how powerful this monster was, it couldn't absorb dead aura, right? Nie Wuxiang was disappointed. I thought you had a way to get dead aura. Mo Chenga smiled bitterly. Where can I get dead aura? It was just a thought. Unfortunately, when she was in Carefree Valley, she didn't go to the Black Tortoise Temple. Otherwise, she might have found a stone tablet similar to the one in the Divine Dragon Temple and found the secret of dead aura. Of course, thinking about this now was useless. Even if she went to the Black Tortoise Temple at that time, she might not be able to find the secret. Mo Chenga felt a bit of a headache when she thought about this. Did she have to use that trick again this time? It wasn't a good thing to rely too much on the virtual sky world. Fellow Taoist Nie Wuxiang seemed to be still thinking about that problem, so she answered casually. If I can't avoid it, I have a secret technique that can help me escape. What about you? I also have a few methods. But in the current situation I might not be able to do it. Nie Wuxiang wasn't very confident when it came to this matter. Although she thought her strength wasn't bad, she was now facing a nascent soul cultivator. The gap between the nascent soul and the core formation realm really wasn't that easy to cross. Mo Chenga understood. She hesitated for a moment, then asked, "This secret technique of mine can also help you. However, I'll knock you out first. Can you accept it?" She absolutely wouldn't let a third person know about the secret of the virtual sky world, even if she had a good friendship with Nie Wuxiang. If she wanted to save Nie Wuxiang's life, she had to make sure Nie Wuxiang was unconscious. However, she didn't know whether Nie Wuxiang was willing to put her life in her hands. Nie Wuxiang only thought for a moment, then said, "If I really can't escape, it's up to you." After a pause, she shook her head and sighed. "In any case, it's not the first time I've put my life in your hands." Mo Chenga didn't quite understand what she meant. Just as she was about to ask, her divine sense, which had always been on guard, suddenly sensed a strange aura. A chill ran down her back. She opened her eyes and said, "There's something." It seems to be the monster the three fellow Taoists talked about. When the others heard what she said, they all stood up and took action with their magic weapons. Jin Shi looked at her in surprise. He probably didn't expect her divine sense to be a bit stronger than his. After all, on the surface, Mo Chenga's cultivation level was just in the middle stage of the core formation realm, even weaker than his. Soon the others also sensed the monster's approach. Its speed was indeed not fast, but if they weren't careful, it would be out of the range of their divine senses. This thing was indeed strange. Before long, the monster finally appeared at the end of the passage. Just as Jin Shi and his two companions said, this monster didn't seem to have a strong momentum. It was just a strange black aura that seemed easy to scatter. However, they already learned about the danger of this thing from Jin Shi and his two companions, so none of them dared to take it lightly. Among the 7 people, Yong Ryu was the first to act. He and Xiao Qingrua used their jade bracelets. A ray of light shone and shot towards the monster. Just now, the two of them didn't have strong wills. They knew their status in this team wasn't as high as before, so they simply took the initiative to test the monster. Their actions were exactly what the others were thinking. Jin Shi and his two companions had already fought with this monster. Now that they saw it, they knew it was already weak, so they could only hope the 4 of them had other methods. As for Mo Chenga, she also hoped someone could test it and think of a way to deal with it. Yong Ryu and Xiao Qingrua's jade bracelets were a set of rarely seen combined magic weapons. Compared to single magic weapons, this kind of magic weapon had more variations. Right now, the 2 of them used it to strangle the monster rather than to kill it. The light from the jade bracelets formed a circle, trapping the monster. It suddenly tightened as if it wanted to strangle the monster's aura. Under the twisting of the light, the aura was easily divided into 2 halves. Yong Ryu and Xiao Qingrua looked happy, but Mushi already shouted, "If you break this thing up, it'll immediately gather back together." The light from the jade bracelets dissipated. Sure enough, after the light disappeared, the aura that was strained slowly gathered back together as if it had never been hit. Yong Ryu and Xiao Qingrua's expressions changed. This was their most powerful magic weapon. Didn't that mean they couldn't deal with this monster? "Senior Martial Brother, what should we do?" Xiao Qingrua asked. How could Yong Ryu know what to do? Right now, his mind was also in a mess. He cast his gaze towards Mo Chenga and Nie Wuxiang. Nie Wuxiang had been silent since the monster appeared. Mo Chenga didn't know what she was thinking, so she hurriedly took out the Heaven and Earth fan. She unfolded the Heaven and Earth fan. With a crane cry, the red-crowned crane soared into the sky and directly attacked the monster with lightning speed. It pierced through the monster's body and created a hole. But in the next moment, the red-crowned crane disappeared in the air. The monster's aura still slowly condensed and became one. Mo Chinga's expression darkened. Spiritual aura? This was also a test move. This red-crowned crane was only a small spiritual aura transformed from the heaven and earth fan, but just now not only did it not cause any substantial damage to the monster, but the spiritual aura condensed into the crane also disappeared. Jin Shi and the others were right. This monster could absorb both devil aura and spiritual aura. This was bad. The current situation was similar to the feeling they had when they faced the giant ape in Carefree Valley, but it was more terrifying than the ape. Although the giant ape was invulnerable, it was still limited by its cultivation level. If it was a nascent soul cultivator, they could kill it in one fell swoop. If they fought it head-on, it wasn't impossible. However, they couldn't figure out how strong this monster was. Running away wasn't the solution. If they couldn't recover their spiritual aura here, their spiritual aura or devil aura would be consumed. In the end, they wouldn't be able to resist this monster. With their current cultivation levels, if they wanted to get out of this predicament, they could only take drastic measures and leave this place. No one attacked again. That monster slowly moved closer to them. Jin Shi and the others turned pale. They said, "Fellow Taoists, do you have any other solutions?" No one spoke. The monster's aura slowly dispersed, spreading towards everyone. "Let's go," Nie Wuxiang shouted. "We're not its match now. We have to preserve our strength first." No one hesitated, including Mo Chinga. In the blink of an eye, they left their original spots and fled into the distance. Chapter 409. We're food. An hour later, everyone stopped at a passageway that didn't look any different from the previous one. Nie Wuxiang opened her mouth and said this. In an instant, everyone's eyes were focused on her. Nie Wuxiang continued, "If you want to live, you have to kill the thing that ate us or leave this place." Jin Shi and the other two people's breaths were obviously unstable. Yu Gue, who was the most timid among them, looked at Jin Shi in panic. "Big brother, this." They'd been running for a while, so they had much less devil aura than Mo Chinga's group. In the end, they'd be the first to give up. Jin Shi stared at Nie Wuxiang and asked, "This? Fellow Taoist Tianqin, are you saying that Mei Feng tricked us into coming here just to feed this monster?" Nie Wuxiang shook her head softly. "The truth is right in front of us, but we don't know whether it's the ultimate goal or not. If we're eaten, what ultimate goal is there?" Yong Ryu frowned with an unsightly expression. "Will this monster become stronger after eating us?" Nie Wuxiang snorted and looked at him. "Didn't you notice that after you attacked, the monster's aura became stronger?" Yong Ryu was stunned. He really didn't notice that. He only felt annoyed when his attack failed, but after thinking about it carefully, even if the monster's aura became stronger, it shouldn't be much stronger, right? Otherwise, with core formation cultivators' sensitivity to auras, they would have noticed it even if they didn't pay attention. Jin Yu and the other two people looked pensive. Mushi said hesitantly, "Indeed. When we first encountered this monster, it wasn't as strong as it is now." Yu Gui's expression changed greatly. He looked at Jin Shi and said, "Then, even if all of us joined forces, we still couldn't defeat it? What are you panicking for?" Jin Shi shouted at him. He then turned to Nie Wuxiang and asked politely, "Fellow Taoist, since you've noticed this, do you have a way to deal with it?" Nie Wuxiang shook her head. "I have a clue, but I can't think of a way yet." Jin Shi was dumbfounded. "Then what should we do next? Do we have to keep running like this? In that case, we won't be able to recover our devil aura and will be eaten in the end. I have a suggestion." Mo Chinga, who had been silent the whole time, suddenly spoke, instantly attracting everyone's attention. Although they hadn't known each other for long, they had a general understanding of each other's personalities. Yong Ryu and Qiu Qingrua were capable of fighting, and their experience was also not bad. However, at the crucial moment they were easily confused. As for Jin Shi and the other two, there was no need to mention Yu Gue. Although Mushi was meticulous, his horizons were limited, and Jin Shi's conduct was somewhat crude. Because of that, only Nie Wuxiang and Mo Chinga could put forward feasible suggestions at the critical moment. Mo Chinga continued to say, "If the first test was to confuse us and this test was City Lord Mei's real purpose, then everyone should have reached this place." Not bad. Although Jin Shi was crude, he was not stupid. Hearing these words, he immediately thought of what she wanted to say, "If we gather everyone, maybe we can?" Mo Chinga nodded in agreement. "And if we work together, we might not necessarily have no hope." Mushi immediately began to calculate carefully. We have 7 people here, so there should be 8 people who are not in the same place. One of them has already been swallowed. This is something we saw with our own eyes. If the others are all fine, then there should be 7 people left. Ryu looked a bit hesitant. Do we really have to gather everyone? But this place is like a maze, how are we going to find them? There were so many forks in the road that it would take a long time to walk through them. About that, Nye Wuxiang said, we'll divide into groups and make marks along the way. Every time we separate for half an hour, we must meet again to ensure that we won't get separated. That's fine, Jinshi said. But even if we do that, we might not be able to gather everyone. Besides, if we can't restore our devil aura. Therefore we must determine a time, Emotinga said. First, let's talk about how long the medicinal pills you have can keep full of spiritual aura. This. Jinshi was the first to hesitate. For cultivators, the number of medicinal pills they had was the same as the number of magic weapons. They were all top secrets. If this kind of thing was known by others, they would fall into a passive position during fights of magical powers. Even if they were good friends, they wouldn't ask this kind of question. On the contrary, Ryu immediately said, yes, we're all in the same boat now. In front of a strong enemy, we'd naturally have a higher chance of survival if we join hands, so we must trust each other for once. However, I hope we can all take an oath that we won't turn against each other before we can safely escape. No problem. Emotinga glanced at Jinshi and asked, fellow Taoists, what do you think? This. Jinshi was still hesitant. Seeing this, Ryu said with a heavy voice, fellow Taoists, you're devil cultivators. Relatively speaking, the binding force of an oath on you isn't as strong as ours. If you can't even accept this, how can we trust each other? Without trust, how can we cooperate? Big brother, he's right, Mushi reminded him in a low voice. The situation is urgent, so we can only do this. After hesitating for a long time, Jinshi clenched his teeth and said, all right, we have to gamble. He then raised his hand and said, I, Jinshi, hereby take an oath to the devil god that I'll advance and retreat together with all the fellow Taoists here and trust each other. I'll treat you the same way you treat me. If I harbor evil thoughts and violate my oath, I'll never be able to advance to the nascent soul realm for the rest of my life, and all my divine abilities will be crippled. After he finished chanting, Mushi and Yugui did the same. After making the oath, the 3 of them stared at Emotinga and the others. Emotinga didn't hesitate. She said first, I swear by my inner demon that before I can safely escape, as long as fellow Taoists don't violate the oath, I'll trust you wholeheartedly and will never turn against you. If I violate this oath, Tao Ancestor will bear witness and let me be trapped by my inner demon for the rest of my life. My cultivation level won't be able to advance even an inch, and my divine abilities will be crippled. Then Nye Wuxiang, Ryu, and Qiu Qingrua made the oath one by one. When the last person finished speaking, the 7 of them heaved sighs of relief. They finally had a preliminary trust among each other. Mortals might be able to deny oaths, but cultivators like them couldn't. The reason they embarked on the path of cultivation was because they believed there were immortals and devils in this world. That being the case, how could they violate their oaths? Even though devil cultivators didn't cultivate their minds as strictly as Tao cultivators, they still had their own taboos. After making the oath, Jinshi was straightforward. He took out several bottles of medicinal pills from his robe and said, for us devil cultivators, there aren't many medicinal pills we can take directly. After entering this secret place, we've consumed a lot of devil cores. These bottles are the only medicinal pills I have left. I think they can probably last us for a day or 2. Mushi said, I have less than Big Brother, but if I use them sparingly, it won't be a problem for me to last a day. Yugui opened his Chenkuan bag and looked inside. I'm about the same as Mushi. I can probably only last us for a day. Seeing this situation, Emotinga wrinkled her brows. She knew devil cultivators usually didn't have many medicinal pills, but she didn't expect they would have so few. They had been walking for a long time, but they still hadn't found the end of this cave. If they wanted to search the whole cave, it definitely wouldn't be a matter of a day. In addition, in order to deal with that monster, they had to save some medicinal pills for the last moment and couldn't use them all. Next was Qiu Qingrua. Our situation is a bit better. I often concoct medicinal pills, so I have a lot of medicinal pills that can be used as restorative panaceas. I think it won't be a problem for me and senior martial brother to take them for 3 to 5 days. Upon hearing this, Emotinga's expression became a bit better. Core formation cultivators, especially core formation cultivators who belong to a sect, could only get by if they had so many medicinal pills. Nie Wuxiang spread her hands and said, I don't have many medicinal pills, but I have a treasure that can replenish my spiritual aura and can last us for 3 to 5 days. Finally, Mo Tiange said, I have a lot of medicinal pills on me, so 3 to 5 days won't be a problem. She didn't finish her sentence and continued, that being the case, let's make an agreement on the other matters. The others didn't have any objections. They agreed on a marking and a rough route, and in the end they split into 3 groups. The 3 devil cultivators naturally stayed together. Yong Ruyu and Qiu Qingrua went one way, while Mo Tiange and Nie Wuxiang went the other. Although everyone had sworn an oath when it came to splitting up, they still needed to trust each other and have a tacit understanding. Fellow Taoists, Junior Martial Sister and I will go first. Once the details were settled, Yong Ruyu cupped her hands to bid farewell. The 2 of them chose the left path. If they encountered too many forks in the road, they would come back early and notify the others through voice transmission. Jin Shi said, then we'll also go. Once he finished speaking, he didn't waste any time and led his 2 brothers to the right path. Finally, there were only the 2 of them left. Mo Tiange and Nie Wuxiang glanced at each other, then sighed and walked towards the middle passage. After walking for a while, when their divine senses couldn't detect the traces of the other 2 people, Nie Wuxiang suddenly asked, your idea isn't just to gather everyone together, right? Mo Tiange glanced at her, then shook her head with a bitter smile. Sure enough, I still can't hide it from you. You're right, this proposal actually has another meaning. If we can gather everyone together, of course it'll be good, but if this road is blocked and everyone gets separated, it'll actually buy time for everyone. If they split up, that monster could only chase one target at a time, so the others would be relatively safer. If they cooperated well, they'd consume less spiritual aura, which would allow them to hold on for a while longer. This method might not necessarily guarantee everyone's safety, but even if someone was sacrificed, it could buy time for the others. They agreed so straightforwardly, so it's not like they didn't know what you meant. I know. Mo Tiange didn't try to hide it. But they're all strangers. How could they refuse to sacrifice some people in exchange for their own safety? In any case, I was the one who made this proposal, so they just need to acquiesce. But if they're the ones sacrificing themselves, then they can only blame their bad luck. It's the same for us, Mo Tiange said flatly. Now she wouldn't be affected by this kind of thing. On the path of cultivation, sometimes luck was the key. If you were lucky, you could advance step by step, but if you were unlucky, you could only become someone else's stepping stone. Nie Wuxiang was silent. She was even more accustomed to this kind of thing than Mo Tiange. After a while, she once again asked, but this isn't your ultimate goal, right? Mo Tiange turned her head and smiled at her. I have to ask you about that. Actually, you know that monster, right? Chapter 410. Nie Wuxiang was stunned for a long time before she finally said, how did you know? She didn't mean to deny it. Mo Tiange smiled. Although we haven't known each other for long, our understanding is more than superficial. According to your personality, when you saw that monster, even if you didn't try, you wouldn't have reacted like that, right? Nie Wuxiang was a person who liked to act rather than analyze. Besides, she had so many treasures in her hands, so she definitely had all kinds of attack methods. But when they met that monster, she didn't try at all and just told everyone to run, which wasn't in line with her personality. Seeing that Nie Wuxiang didn't speak, Mo Tiange asked again with a smile, what? You can't tell me about that thing? Nie Wuxiang glanced at her, then said slowly, I've seen that thing before. As they walked, she said, the cultivation technique my master practiced is called Primordial Devil Great Technique. I followed him for more than 100 years and vaguely heard him mention that when he was just a small foundation-building cultivator, he once took a risk and entered Demonic Mountain and accidentally obtained a fated chance. He found an ancient map on Demonic Mountain. Following the map, he arrived at a secret place. In the end, he obtained a cultivation technique engraved on a stone tablet in that secret place. This cultivation technique was very strange. It was very different from the cultivation techniques of today, whether it was the devil path or the righteous path. My master comprehended it for more than 100 years and finally comprehended the Primordial Devil Great Technique. From then on, he became one of the top cultivators in the Celestial Pole. The cultivation technique on the stone tablet. Mo Tiange muttered to herself. Before I was born, Master hadn't come out for many years. We lived in seclusion in the far west desert and rarely set foot in Kunwu. Even if there was something, Master would only send me to handle it. Ever since I was a child, I saw Master always cultivating in closed-door meditation and never went out. With Master's personality, living in seclusion for hundreds of years and not going out to stir up trouble was naturally a very important matter. During that time, Master was practicing the primordial devil great technique. In Master's cave there was a primordial devil pool, where he gathered the primordial devil aura he cultivated with various methods. This aura was similar to devil aura, but it was much stronger. Moreover, it invaded people's hearts like death aura. When I was a child, Master cultivated a monster from the primordial devil pool, which is the thing we saw today. Although the westernmost area is desolate, there are still many scattered tribes and mountain villages. Every once in a while Master would. Speaking up to this point, Nie Wuxiang's voice was somewhat trembling. He would order that monster to exterminate a village. No matter if it was a man or a woman, old or young, they would all be swallowed by that monster, and not even their bones would remain. Mo Chinga felt goosebumps all over her body. Not attacking mortals was basically a rule that all cultivators abided by. Even devil cultivators rarely did things like exterminating an entire village for no reason. This Master Song Feng really cultivated the deceitful path. He didn't care about karma at all. Nie Wuxiang took a deep breath, and her tone became calm again. Every once in a while this monster will go out to plunder and kill. When it comes back it'll become even stronger. I once heard my master muttering to himself that it was a pity that there were few cultivators in the far west. If he could eat cultivators he would grow even faster. At that time, it would only be a matter of time before he mastered his demonic arts. I remember Master refined this monster before we left the far west desert. I was about 60 years old at that time. Nie Wuxiang thought for a while then said, I remember Master refined this monster before we left the westernmost area. At that time I was about 60 years old. Nie Wuxiang thought for a while and said, I remember Master refined this monster before we left the far west desert. At that time I was about 60 years old. Mo Chinga calculated in her mind and asked in confusion, with your master's personality, why didn't he go to Kunwu to kill and plunder? In any case his cultivation level was amazing. Robbing a few cultivators wasn't a problem. Nie Wuxiang shook her head. You don't know the reason. Back then, my master lived in seclusion in the far west desert because something went wrong during his cultivation. He offended a lot of people in the celestial pole, so he didn't dare to step into Kunwu. He could only use this method to restore his spiritual aura. I see. Mo Chinga lowered her head and thought. If this thing is the same as the one your master cultivated, then City Lord May's cultivation technique is similar to your master's. Your master spent several hundred years devouring mortals to succeed, but City Lord May devoured more than 10 core formation cultivators in one go. Is it possible that he'll finish his cultivation technique soon? Nie Wuxiang looked dignified. After a long time she said, maybe. Mortals, even if there were tens of thousands of them, were nothing compared to cultivators, let alone core formation cultivators. Every one of them had powerful spiritual aura or devil aura, so the possibility of this happening was too high. Mo Chinga thought for a while then said, then we can roughly figure out what happened. City Lord May obtained a cultivation technique similar to your master's from somewhere. Since he was trapped in the early stage of the nascent soul realm for several hundred years, he couldn't wait to finish cultivating this cultivation technique. Therefore he deceived the core formation cultivators who passed by Starfall City and made up some reasons to lure us into his trap. He wanted to feed us to this monster so that he could finish cultivating the devil technique in one night and advance to a top-notch cultivator. As for the devil crystals, it might have the same purpose as this place where spiritual aura couldn't be restored. Because that monster was still too weak, it needed these methods to consume the strength of core formation cultivators like them so that they could be swallowed into its stomach as soon as possible. Correct. Nie Wuxiang muttered. She was too familiar with this thing, so familiar that it reminded her of her past nightmares. Primordial devil aura. She hadn't forced it out of her body yet, but did she have to face this thing again? The two of them were silent. Mo Chinga pondered a lot more. There were some things she knew more than Nie Wuxiang. Coupled with what Nie Wuxiang told her, she had an even bigger conjecture in her heart. Nie Wuxiang said Master Song Feng's devil technique came from a cultivation technique on a stone tablet. The primordial devil aura he cultivated was much stronger than ordinary devil aura and was somewhat similar to dead aura. Wasn't this situation similar to Ren Yufeng's incident? Ren Yufeng was also a foundation-building cultivator. He obtained a stone tablet from the Divine Dragon Sacrificial Temple and comprehended a cultivation technique from it. He cultivated dead aura and became a core formation cultivator in one fell swoop. As for Master Song Feng, he was only a small cultivator back then. Because of a fated chance, he obtained a cultivation technique on a stone tablet from a secret place. After comprehending it for 100 years, he comprehended the primordial devil technique and became the first late nascent soul cultivator who shook the celestial pole today. If there was a difference, it would be that Ren Yufeng cultivated dead aura while Master Song Feng cultivated primordial devil aura, which was of a higher level. This point wasn't hard to explain. First, Master Song Feng spent a lot more time comprehending than Ren Yufeng, so his comprehension was clearer and more thorough than Ren Yufeng's. Second, based on Master Song Feng's behavior, although he was extremely evil, his comprehension in cultivation wasn't low, so his comprehension was closer to the essence than Ren Yufeng's. As for this City Lord Mei, since she racked her brains to set up this trap and was still so impatient, it could be speculated that she hadn't obtained this cultivation technique for a long time. With her nascent soul cultivation level, she naturally could easily comprehend the real secret technique. That being the case, there were 3 similar cultivation techniques and 2 of them came from a stone tablet. Moreover, Feifei once said there was a black tortoise sacrificial temple in Worryless Valley, and this place was precisely the mountain range where Worryless Valley was located. Among these 3 examples, Ren Yufeng's incident was the clearest. He obtained a stone tablet from the divine dragon sacrificial temple and cultivated dead aura. In Master Song Feng's incident, what could be confirmed was the stone tablet. As for the sacrificial temple, presumably, Nie Wuxiang also didn't know. City Lord Mei could deduce that it was the black tortoise sacrificial temple, but whether she obtained the stone tablet or not was unknown. However, it could be inferred that the other 2 people obtained the secret technique from the stone tablet, so City Lord Mei should have done the same. Moreover, both City Lord Mei and Ren Yufeng went to the sacrificial temple and obtained the stone tablet from there. Therefore, even if the secret place Master Song Feng went to wasn't the sacrificial temple, the stone tablet should have come from one of the sacrificial temples in the beginning. 3 sacrificial temples of the distant past era, 3 stone tablets, and a cultivation technique that seemed devilish yet wasn't. This matter wasn't simple. After thinking for a long time, Mo Chinga finally heaved a sigh and asked, "Actually, you have a way to solve it, don't you?" After a while, Nie Wuxiang finally exhaled softly and revealed a faint smile. Her gaze was complicated as she said, "Yes. But this method, will it have a great impact on you?" Nie Wuxiang let out a bitter laugh. She calmly looked into Mo Chinga's eyes and said 4 words, "Overturn the world." The 2 of them were silent for a while before Nie Wuxiang continued to speak slowly. "Although I stole that Tianyan sex treasure and can temporarily suppress the primordial devil aura in my body, it's already deeply rooted in my meridians. It can't be erased without a special method. That being the case, why would I be afraid of this thing? The primordial devil aura in my body is of a higher grade than this monster's aura." Mo Chinga knew there were differences in grade between spirit and devil aura. However, she didn't know how to analyze Nie Wuxiang's situation. Attack with primordial devil aura? Since they were from the same source, it didn't seem easy, right? Otherwise, what other methods could she use? A light bulb suddenly went off in her head, and her eyes widened. "Could it be that your method is to absorb this thing?" Nie Wuxiang gave her a deep look then nodded silently. Mo Chinga's mood surged when she saw Nie Wuxiang's affirmation. She said somewhat anxiously, "Then won't you fall short of success?" Before this, Nie Wuxiang just told her that she wanted to be a real cultivator, but if that was the case, "It's no big deal," Nie Wuxiang said faintly. "Of course I don't want to do that, but if I really have no other choice, so what if I become a real devil cultivator? Whether I'm an immortal or a devil, it's just a thought. I don't want to ascend, so it's fine as long as I know it myself." Mo Chinga was silent for a long time before she sighed. "With your mental state, I don't need to say anything more." Many cultivators didn't attach importance to mental cultivation, but only when they made a realm breakthrough did they realize how important this hurdle was. Nie Wuxiang being able to say this showed that she was very clear about her future. "Fellow Taoist Mo," Nie Wuxiang suddenly turned around and called out. "En? I want to ask you one thing." Nie Wuxiang stared at her and said earnestly, "If I really do that, please take me out of this place safely." Mo Chinga was shocked. She stared at her deeply and said, "Do you believe I can take you out of this place safely?" Nie Wuxiang showed a faint smile and said, "Just like what you said before, knock me out and use your secret technique." "I've said it before. In any case, this isn't the first time I've put my life in your hands. As for whether we can escape or not, that can only depend on our luck." Mo Chinga felt that her weakness had been exposed. She wasn't afraid of becoming enemies with others, and she was also used to speculating that others had evil intentions. However, Nie Wuxiang's clear trust in her made her unable to say anything. She smiled bitterly. This Nie Wuxiang. She's basically eating into my personality, right? Chapter 411. There's someone. Mo Chenga suddenly stopped. Nie Wuxiang knew her divine sense was powerful, so she didn't doubt her and immediately asked, "How many? What's the situation?" Mo Chenga carefully sensed for a while, then said, "One seems to be wandering aimlessly." Nie Wuxiang was stunned. Before she could say anything, Mo Chenga turned around and said, "Let's go. We'll look for him directly." The two of them weren't slow. After a while, Nie Wuxiang's divine sense also sensed that person. Then that person also approached them. Both of them were core formation cultivators, so they moved very fast. Before long, Mo Chenga saw a person coming out of a fork in the road not far away. That person's face was gray and extremely thin. His body was covered in a green robe that was almost black. He looked like a dried corpse. However, although he looked extremely ugly, his momentum was very strong. He was in the peak of the middle stage of the core formation realm. "Fellow Taoist," Mo Chenga said, "may I ask?" Whoosh! Before she could finish, that person suddenly pushed his palm. Along with the wind from his palm, a cloud of black smoke appeared out of thin air and rushed towards their faces. Devil aura. Mo Chenga fumbled in her Qingquan bag. The white silk handkerchief turned into a mist and blocked the devil aura. At the same time, Nie Wuxiang jumped up and punched the devil cultivator. With a loud bang, the devil aura and the strong aura collided, cracking a large piece of the stone wall around them. Nie Wuxiang was shaken and took a step back with a surprised expression on her face. Although she was a woman, she was a martial cultivator. She walked the path of unyielding and unyielding. Her punch was extremely domineering, but this devil cultivator was able to force her back with just his devil chi. He was suppressing her with his cultivation base alone. Something's wrong. Mo Chenga stared at the cultivator in front of her. Look at his eyes. Nie Wuxiang stared at him and frowned. This cultivator's eyes were lifeless and unfocused as if he was in a trance. Mo Chenga swept her gaze and saw the puppet hanging on his waist. It was covered with a layer of black aura and emitted a faint light. The aura of the devil crystal couldn't be blocked. A thought flashed in her mind and her face turned pale. Could it be what? Just as Nie Wuxiang asked, the devil cultivator clasped his hands together. A strange light flashed in his eyes, and another devil aura attacked them. Facing this attack, both of them chose to dodge. The two of them suddenly separated. With a flash of teleportation, they were already dozens of feet away. Look at the puppet, Mo Chenga answered after taking some time to spare. Nie Wuxiang's eyes flashed and she was terrified. At this moment, the demonic cultivator arrived once more. His speed was extremely fast and wasn't much slower than Nie Wuxiang's. Furthermore, he only used his devil aura to attack and didn't even use his magic weapon, but his power was extremely great. Seeing the devil aura gathering in his hand, Mo Chenga unfolded the heaven and earth fan in her hand. In an instant, mountains and rivers loomed in front of her. "Fellow Taoist," Mo Chenga shouted again. The devil cultivator didn't react at all. He turned a deaf ear to it and blasted out another ball of devil chi, immediately destroying the seemingly solid mountain and river in front of him. Mo Chenga wasn't surprised. Even Nie Wuxiang was repelled. Her heaven and earth fan wasn't good at blocking, so it was normal for it to be broken. Therefore, she instantly put away the heaven and earth fan and summoned the white silk handkerchief again, easily blocking the remaining devil aura that passed through the heaven and earth fan. "It seems he can't hear us," Nie Wuxiang said. "Yes, it seems our guess about the use of devil crystals was wrong." Nie Wuxiang reacted quickly and said, "You mean, this devil crystal could absorb essence energy by itself? And a person would become stupid if they lost too much of their essence energy. So, it wouldn't be impossible for City Lord Mei to turn them into a living dead person if she had used some strange secret technique on it. We can't show mercy, we must kill him." After saying that, Mo Chenga fumbled in her Qingquan bag and took out an item, the Lotus Scarlet Umbrella. With this umbrella, poisonous devil aura couldn't invade it, so it was a good thing to deal with devil cultivators. Nie Wuxiang wasn't slow either. She also took out an item then rushed forward. The two of them weren't weak in fights of magical power. Even if they fought this devil cultivator alone, their chances of winning were quite high, let alone 2 against 1. Mo Chenga opened the Lotus Scarlet Umbrella. In an instant, the pink lotus on the umbrella bloomed as if it was alive. In an instant, the devil aura around her body was cleansed, and the tip of the umbrella drew a bolt of lightning, striking towards the devil cultivator. Lightning techniques had a restraining effect on devil cultivators. Under this strike, the devil cultivator's eyes became dull for a moment, and his whole body stood still. At the same time, Nie Wuxiang approached him like a gust of wind and punched him with a tyrannical force. The devil cultivator coughed up a mouthful of blood, but he was still sent flying without any sound or even a scream. He was so thin that only his bones remained. At this moment he looked like a piece of wood wrapped in clothes. He fell headfirst and no longer moved. Dead. Mo Chinga was dumbfounded when she sensed the devil aura on the devil cultivator's body gradually dissipating. Nie Wuxiang stepped forward to take a look, then nodded. Dead. Mo Chinga was dumbfounded for a while, then said in surprise, "What's going on? He was so strong just now. I think it has something to do with him becoming like this, right?" Nie Wuxiang said, "I remember this devil cultivator. At that time I saw him in the hall. He was only in the early stage of the core formation realm." Mo Chinga thought for a moment, then nodded understandingly. "I see. In that case, City Lord Mei must have put a lot of effort into the puppet. There must have been some kind of restriction or secret technique on it that turned people into this. Their realms were high but their strength was low, so it was convenient to feed that monster. Fortunately, they didn't use that puppet in the beginning. Otherwise, even if they didn't turn into the living dead, they would have been really unlucky if they became dumb." The two of them sighed. They cleaned up the scene, then continued to look for other people. They'd already killed one of the 7 people they were looking for, so what about the others? Were they still in good condition? Or had they already followed in this cultivator's footsteps and become a puppet? An hour passed, but they didn't find any other people. They decided to meet up with the other 2 groups of people and tell them about a new location. After they met up, Mo Chinga told them what they encountered and told them to be vigilant. Soon after, they once again split up to look for other people. The other 2 groups didn't encounter anything during this hour, so they were still looking for 6 people. As time passed bit by bit, Jin Shi's group of 3 started to feel anxious. They had the least medicinal pills. If they didn't find anything in the end, they would be the first to be sacrificed. Half a day later, Yong Ryu sent them a voice transmission. They encountered 2 devil cultivators who had already turned into puppets. These 2 devil cultivators were the same as the ones Mo Chinga and her group encountered. They attacked without saying a word. Before long, Jin Shi's group of 3 encountered another one. A chaotic massacre took place in this cave. City Lord. Outside the secret area, next to the transporting formation, Elder Liang looked at the darkening sky and called out in a low voice. City Lord Mei, who was sitting cross-legged on a small slope, didn't even open her eyes. She just snorted and said, "What's wrong?" Elder Liang asked with a worried expression. "It's been almost a day but it's still not over. Did something unexpected happen?" After a while, City Lord Mei said slowly, "Something unexpected. There should be a little but the result will be the same." Elder Liang didn't understand. "What?" "From what I can see, among those core formation cultivators, there are a few who don't seem easy to deal with. They don't have devil crystals on them and they're very strong. If we kill them all, wouldn't it be a waste of City Lord's efforts?" They used a special method to transform this place into a small distant past secret area, refined those devil crystals, and deceived so many core formation cultivators. Each of these tasks was very troublesome. Moreover, they had to do them one after another without any room for mistakes. The City Lord planned this meticulously because he wanted to succeed in one fell swoop. They couldn't capture people randomly because core formation cultivators were the backbone of a large cultivation group. If they lost 1 or 2 important cultivators, their nascent soul cultivators would show up, which would bring trouble to Descending Star City. Moreover, they didn't know how long they would have to wait to capture insignificant cultivators to feed. Hence, they chose to deceive and gather all the core formation cultivators together. After making all the necessary preparations, they would feed all of them to the City Lord's Yuan Devil. When the City Lord became a top-notch cultivator, it would be too late for the large cultivation groups to find out. This plan was very detailed and meticulous. However, because it was too detailed and meticulous, if anything went wrong, it would be a disaster for the City Lord in Descending Star City. If the Yuan Devil didn't grow to a sufficient level and the news got out, both the righteous and demonic sects would start a massacre on Descending Star City. Elder Liang couldn't help but worry about this. All of them were the City Lord's trusted aides. If they failed, the city lord might be able to escape, but they would definitely become pawns. Just as Elder Liang's heart was in turmoil, City Lord Mei's sharp voice rang out. Are you afraid? Elder Liang shrank back and said softly, I'm a little worried. Humph. City Lord Mei snorted unhappily. What's there to worry about? This matter is already within my grasp. Among these people there are 4 who didn't wear any demonic crystals. They are very strong and astute. They will definitely notice something amiss after entering the disorienting cave. However, so what? I've already made preparations in the disorienting cave. They definitely won't be able to escape. Even if they kill the others, it's useless because the spiritual demonic aura won't dissipate in the disorienting cave. In the end it will be absorbed by my Yuan devil. I see. Elder Liang heaved a sigh of relief. The disorienting cave was personally set up by the city lord. He didn't know what was inside. As for those 4 people, when my Yuan devil grows to a certain level and their spiritual aura is exhausted, they won't be able to escape death. So you've already planned this. I've been meddlesome. Elder Liang was finally at ease. No matter what, these people were still core formation cultivators. They wouldn't be able to defeat the city lord. City Lord Mei smiled proudly and didn't say anything else. However, it had indeed been a long time. He really wanted to know what had happened inside. After thinking for a moment, he raised his hand and took out a palm-sized ancient mirror. He gathered demonic aura in his hand and lightly pushed it against the mirror. Immediately, the scene inside the cave appeared on the mirror's surface. After watching for a while, City Lord Mei couldn't help but exclaim, these core formation cultivators are stronger than I imagined. Chapter 412. Ling Xiaorui was thrown out, and the spiritual aura exploded. Mo Chenga wiped her face, looked at the fallen devil cultivator, and breathed a sigh of relief. These unconscious devil cultivators were both easy to deal with and hard to deal with. The easy part was that as long as they were restrained for a moment, she and Ye Wuxiang could react fast enough to cripple them. The hard part was that if they couldn't be restrained, their strength would soar, and their devil aura would be very powerful. They could only choose to dodge and fall into a passive position. The 5th one, Ye Wuxiang said as she tightened her gloves. Jin Shi and the others witnessed one of them being swallowed by that monster. Up until now, their 3 groups had killed 5 devil cultivators, which added up to 6. So, if the others hadn't been eaten, there would be 2 more people left. Without exception, all 5 of them had lost their minds, and the remaining 2 were probably also in danger. Thinking of this, Mo Chenga couldn't help but sigh. Of the 15 people, 6 were dead and 2 were missing. Among the 7 of them, Jin Shi and the other 2 didn't have medicinal pills to support them, so they wouldn't be able to hold on for long. It was hard to say whether Yong Ruyu or Qiu Qingrua would survive because their cultivation levels were a bit weak. The situation wasn't optimistic. Let's go, Mo Chenga said after she finished packing up and shook off the messy thoughts in her mind. And Ye Wuxiang followed her. When they reached a fork in the road, Mo Chenga looked up and was stunned. Ye Wuxiang, who was behind her, almost bumped into her. She asked in confusion, "What's wrong?" Before she could finish, she was also stunned. From the fork on their left, a man in a blue robe with a sword on his back came out. He was the only Taoist cultivator other than Yong Ruyu and Qiu Qingrua, the blue-robed swordsman. And the reason why they were surprised was that when this person appeared, he didn't have any aura at all. It was to the extent that they only noticed his appearance the moment they saw him. It wasn't because their divine senses had already detected him. This person had restrained his aura. Could it be that he discovered something? This person walked forward for a while and stopped in front of them. He looked at them sharply and cupped his hands. "Fellow Taoists, He didn't become a puppet," Ye Wuxiang said in a low voice, her voice full of joy. They had been searching for a long time, and together with the other 2 groups of people, they had encountered a total of 5 cultivators. All of them had been turned into puppets and could only be killed. Now that a normal person had suddenly appeared, it was truly a joyous thing. Mo Chenga also did the same. Her gaze swept over the cultivator, but sure enough, she didn't see any wooden puppets on him. She raised her hand and returned the greeting with a smile on her face. "Fellow Taoist, I'm Qin Wei, and this is my friend, Tian Can. May I know how to address you?" "Qin Wei, Tian Can?" A trace of doubt flashed across the green-robed swordsman's eyes, but he quickly replied, "I am Jianxin." "So it's Taoist Jianxin. Nice to meet you." She didn't give him any time to respond and immediately continued, "May I ask fellow Taoist Jianxin if you've noticed anything unusual after entering this secret place?" When the self-proclaimed sword heart cultivator heard this, he vigilantly looked at them and said, "Fellow Taoist, what do you mean?" "What I mean is, don't you think this secret place is abnormal and doesn't seem like an ancient secret place at all?" Nie Wuxiang impatiently probed further, so she asked straightforwardly. Jinshin stared at them for a long time before he finally said, "Correct. So it seems fellow Taoists want to cooperate with me?" It was easy to talk to smart people. Mo Chenga nodded with a smile. "Exactly. Since fellow Taoists also noticed something unusual about this place, you should know what kind of danger we're facing. This isn't like a trial where we can act alone. It's very difficult to find a way out if we're alone." This Jinshin, who once refused Yong Ryu and Nie Wuxiang's proposal, seemed to be someone who liked to act alone. But from another point of view, such a person must be skillful, bold, and extremely opinionated. Jinshin didn't answer immediately. His gaze fell on them as if he was thinking. Mo Chenga and Nie Wuxiang also didn't say much. When opinionated people were thinking about a problem, they generally didn't like others persuading them from the side. If they were too nosy, it would be counterproductive. "Okay." Mo Chenga was stunned and blinked her eyes. "Fellow Taoist Jinshin, you don't want to think about it for a while?" Jinshin shook his head softly and looked at the two of them. "It's imperative to cooperate, so why do I need to think about it? Fellow Taoists, tell me, where did you find the abnormality?" Mo Chenga was very happy that he was so straightforward. "From what fellow Taoist said, you already know how serious this matter is?" Jinshin's line of sight shifted. His gaze was like lightning as it paused on her. He said faintly, "I encountered that strange aura." There was no need to explain. Since he encountered that monster, if he was smart, he could roughly guess what kind of situation he'd fallen into. "Fellow Taoist, where's that puppet?" Mo Chenga asked. "Do you still have it with you?" Jinshin said, "I lost it a long time ago. This thing must be evil." Jinshin's calm tone surprised Mo Chenga and Nie Wuxiang. Although they had long guessed that this thing was strange, they weren't so sure before they discovered the secret of the puppet. Jinshin's gaze stopped on the two of them for a moment. Then he said in a calm tone, "Fellow Taoists, you look quite young. Maybe you're still inexperienced. When you live past 200 years old and see more things, you'll understand that sometimes crisis is a kind of intuition. Under this kind of intuition, you don't need to be too sure to make a decision." When Mo Chenga and Nie Wuxiang heard this, they were both shocked. This Jinshin really couldn't be underestimated. At a glance, he could see that they weren't old. That was fine, but the later experience was more important. This person had definitely experienced many trials and tribulations. His mental state and strength had reached a certain level. Upon realizing this, Mo Chenga was happy and worried at the same time. She was happy because this person had such strength, and as a companion, their strength would increase a lot. She was worried because she hoped he could work together with them. "So that's how it is. We really don't have enough experience." Jinshin nodded and didn't continue talking nonsense. He said straightforwardly, "Okay, we don't have much time. Tell me what you've discovered. After we communicate with each other, maybe we can find a way to deal with it." Mo Chenga and Nie Wuxiang naturally didn't have any objections. The three of them briefly exchanged their findings. After they finished talking, the three of them became silent with solemn expressions. What Jinshin discovered was very simple. He'd entered many secret places, but as soon as he entered this cave, he found something was wrong. Then he couldn't find the exit no matter what, so he realized they'd fallen into a trap. But this simple discovery was very important. They couldn't find the exit. This Jinshin seemed to be much more experienced than them, but he also couldn't find the exit. Could it be that they could only become turtles in a jar and wait helplessly for death? Thinking up to this point, Mo Chenga clenched her teeth. If that was really the case, she'd take Nie Wuxiang and hide in the virtual sky world. At worst, they'd just wait for a few dozen years until the other party gave up on this place and then slowly find a way out. But this was the last resort. Not to mention that she didn't want to rely on the virtual sky world. This couldn't completely solve the problem. In the end, this was City Lord May's territory. If they continued wasting time like this, if their state of mind was affected and they couldn't advance, then City Lord May would really advance to the nascent soul realm? Alright, let's talk about the current situation. After a moment of silence, Jinshin was the first to speak. "There are still 5 people with you. Including me, there's a total of 8 people who are still alive. You said you've already killed 6 people, so in other words, there's still 1 person whose whereabouts haven't been found." "Correct." Mo Chenga nodded. "Does fellow Taoist Jinshin have any suggestions?" Jinshin's tone was still flat, as if he was discussing an insignificant matter. I think the remaining person should still be alive. Oh. Emo Chenga was surprised. Why is fellow Taoist so sure? Because before we entered the secret place, I remember everyone's situation. Emo Chenga and Ye Wuxiang were startled. This Jinshin was actually so meticulous, Jinshin continued to say, among the 15 of us aside from you and me, there's still one person who didn't wear a puppet. That person was a devil cultivator in the middle stage of the core formation realm. He didn't seem to be anything special, but I noticed he had a pair of strange hands. What happened to his hands? Jinshin was still expressionless. His hands were wrapped in black cloth, so divine sense couldn't penetrate them. However, I noticed that when he raised his hands, they revealed a bit of silvery white luster. Jinshin glanced at the two of them and said, if I'm not mistaken, that was a pair of fake hands. Moreover, it was refined into a magic weapon. Emo Chenga was shocked. Nye Wuxiang already shouted, he refined his hands into a magic weapon? Yes, and it's a pair. Jinshin's tone was still flat. This kind of cultivation method is similar to that of the monster race. If I'm not mistaken, he should have been cultivating body refining techniques at the same time. In other words, his body should be much stronger than other cultivators. The reason why human cultivators are stronger than demonic beasts is because we know how to concoct medicinal pills, take medicines, and use magic weapons. Monster race, on the other hand, are born with tyrannical bodies that can split mountains and split rocks. If there's a human cultivator who also has the strength of the monster race, then he's certainly not mediocre. Emo Chenga pondered for a moment, then said, then let's find him first. Since he's so powerful, if we cooperate, our strength will also be a lot stronger. Jinshin nodded. He said so much because this was what he wanted to express. Nye Wuxiang only said one sentence. I have no opinion. Since the three of them were in agreement, Emo Chenga sent a sound-transmitting talisman to the other two squads. After explaining the situation, she said that they couldn't go back and rendezvous within half an hour. She wanted to confirm the general direction and tell everyone to be careful. This direction. After they started on the road again, Jinshin once again expressed his opinion. Emo Chenga looked around. There were 4 or 5 forked roads in front of her. He chose the second road on the right and asked, why? Jinshin said faintly, when I came, I was sure that the 2 roads on the left were empty. If we take this road, we can use our divine sense to explore whether there's anyone on these 3 roads. The strength Jinshin displayed had already convinced Emo Chenga and Nye Wuxiang. Now that they thought about it, they listened to his suggestion and stepped onto the second road on the right. Chapter 413. Elder Liang trembled with fear as he looked at the frowning City Lord Mei. He did not dare to speak. As a City Lord Mei was a good person. He had appointed the elders to manage Descending Star City. He had never doubted them and was not harsh to his subordinates. However, demonic cultivators who practiced demonic techniques were usually more hot-tempered than righteous cultivators. If something went wrong, he would not be polite to them. Even though this matter did not have much to do with the elders, there was a saying in this world, venting one's anger on others. City Lord Mei's face was full of anger. He clenched his fist and a ball of demonic energy shot out, raising a small hill nearby to the ground. The power of a nascent soul cultivator's technique, even if it was done casually, was extremely shocking. This loud explosion shocked the core formation stage elders of Descending Star City. They looked at City Lord Mei with fear. Fortunately, City Lord Mei did not vent his anger on them this time. He took a deep breath and calmed himself down. He slowly said, it seems that I will have to personally deal with these juniors. Elder Liang was considered City Lord Mei's #1 confidant among the elders of Descending Star City. When he heard City Lord Mei's words, he immediately asked, City Lord, what happened? City Lord Mei glanced at the mirror in his hand and said, those juniors are trying to break the restriction that I set up. What? Elder Liang was shocked. They are only at the core formation stage. How can they break the restriction? Isn't this like throwing an egg against a rock? Elder Liang's words were not flattering in the slightest. Instead, he was flattering City Lord Mei, which made City Lord Mei feel comfortable. However, it was only for a moment. It was true that it was difficult for core formation stage cultivators to break a nascent soul cultivator's restriction. The difference in cultivation level was not that easy to overcome. However, it was a different story if one of them was extremely proficient in formations. These juniors are different from ordinary core formation stage cultivators. I really don't know if we are lucky or unlucky. If he could devour all of them, then his Yuan Mo strength would increase rapidly. The This was naturally good luck. However, if something unexpected happened because of these people, then he would suffer a great loss. Although this ancient mystic ground was a disguise, the items inside were the real deal. He had moved from the real ancient secret place to this disorienting cave to raise primordial devil. If it was destroyed just like that, he could not allow this to happen. Mo Chenga stared at the scattered people in front of her, lost in thought. In the end, they still couldn't find the last person. This cave was too big and there were too many forks in the road. Under the situation where everyone had consumed too many pills, they could no longer continue searching. Among the 8 of them, Jin Shi and the other 2 had already exhausted all of their pills. Yong and Xiu were not much better off. In the process of encountering the puppets, they had expended too much energy, causing them to be injured. Right now, only Shi Nie Wuxiang and Jianxin still had their strength intact. Under such circumstances, Jianxin made a suggestion. Since time didn't allow for it, then they would cut off all means of retreat, break through this cave and leave. Upon hearing this suggestion, Mo Chenga wrinkled her brows. It wasn't that this suggestion was completely unfeasible, but it was easier said than done to break through this cave. That monster was in this cave, and the crisis was right in front of them. She was afraid that before they could break through the cave, the monster would find them. Nie Wuxiang was very happy with this suggestion. This situation where they couldn't advance or retreat made her feel suffocated, so she was willing to take a gamble. As for the others, since they had no other choice, they tacitly agreed with Jianxin's suggestion. That being the case, Mo Chenga could only accept it. Although she felt this matter wasn't easy to handle, the facts were in front of her. Apart from this, there was no other way. This was a stupid idea, but at least they could try, so they might as well take a gamble. Just as she was thinking, Jianxin opened his eyes and asked, "Has everyone rested enough?" Everyone stopped to adjust their breathing. Yong Ryu nodded and said, "I'm fine." Mo Chenga and Nie Wuxiang also nodded. Mu Shi hesitated for a moment and said, "Yu Gui and I don't have any more medicinal pills." At this point, he looked at everyone's reaction with some worry. In this kind of situation, without medicinal pills meant they couldn't recover their devil aura, so once their devil aura was exhausted, they would be useless to the team. Mo Chenga understood what Mu Shi was worried about. She looked at Jianxin and the others and said faintly, "Let's take one step at a time and see when the time comes." Jin Shi glanced at his 2 brothers and sighed helplessly. They weren't strong enough and they didn't have enough medicinal pills. The 3 of them already had no right to speak in this team. A day ago, a total of 15 core formation cultivators entered this place. Among them, 10 were devil cultivators and only 5 were Dao cultivators. But now, all the Dao cultivators were alive, and only the 3 of them were devil cultivators. Moreover, they were in a passive position. It had to be said that although devil cultivators were strong, they were not as good as Dao cultivators in terms of adaptability. "Let's go." Jianxin took the lead to stand up and led everyone to one of the passages. Among everyone present, his cultivation level was the highest, and he also seemed to have his own opinions. Unconsciously, he became everyone's leader. Mo Chenga and Nie Wuxiang didn't object to this. On one hand, they were convinced that Jianxin was a truly capable person, and he had already shown his superb judgment. On the other hand, they didn't have a better way. The calmness Jianxin displayed just happened to stabilize the team's morale. After walking for a short distance, Jianxin stopped in front of a passage. "This is it." "Why here?" Nie Wuxiang asked. She really couldn't feel any difference between this passage and the others. Jianxin didn't answer immediately. Instead, his gaze fell on Mo Chenga. Mo Chenga wrinkled her brows. She shook her sleeves and summoned the 8 trigrams diagram of Tai Chi. Spiritual light flowed on the diagram. Following the flow of spiritual aura, Mo Chenga couldn't help but exclaim in astonishment. "What's wrong?" Nie Wuxiang asked. Mo Chenga shook her head and put away the 8 trigrams diagram of Tai Chi. She said, "The spiritual aura fluctuation here is more violent than in other places. If someone laid a restriction in this cave, making it impossible for us to go out, then this place is probably a node." Oh. Nie Wuxiang didn't understand the Tao of formations and restrictions very well, so she just responded. Mo Chenga looked at Jianxin with admiration in her eyes. "Fellow Taoist, Jianxin's strength is really extraordinary. You actually saw the key point at a glance." Although she looked like this, she was secretly vigilant in her heart. She admitted that although her formation-laying technique wasn't good enough, her attainments in formations weren't inferior to specialized formation masters. However, in this place she was burdened by her realm, so she still couldn't find the location of the restriction in this cave. This Jianxin was actually this strong? Jianxin glanced at her. His gaze seemed to have sensed something, so he smiled faintly and said, I'm not proficient in the Tao of formations, I just have a treasure in my hand. Previously I couldn't fight it alone, but now that there are 8 of us we can fight it. His tone changed. Alright, this is an emergency. We shouldn't waste any more time. That monster might catch up to us at any time. And Emo Chenga nodded. She put away the heaven and earth fan and took out a flying sword from her Chenkuan bag. Fellow Taoist Jianxin, what should we do? Nie Wuxiang asked as she tightened her gloves. Jianxin stared at the stone wall in front of him and said, Our realm isn't high enough, so we can only use brute force to destroy it. Everyone just needs to attack this stone wall. When our strength accumulates to a certain extent, we can forcibly destroy this node, and a hole will appear in the hole restriction. At that time we'll take the opportunity to escape. Understood. Nie Wuxiang nodded and threw a punch first. The stone wall shook and made a loud noise as if it was cracked. However, after several breaths, it still stood stably. Continue, Jianxin said. He then shook his sleeves and the sword on his back was unsheathed. A brilliant light suddenly appeared, and a swift and fierce sword aura assaulted Emo Chenga's face. Emo Chenga was slightly startled. Such a swift and fierce sword aura. This Jianxin turned out to be a sword cultivator. She didn't know why, but the number of sword cultivators in Yunzhong was much fewer than in the Celestial Pole. Perhaps it was because it wasn't easy for sword cultivators to advance to the next realm, and the cultivators in Yunzhong pursued higher realms than in the Celestial Pole? Emo Chenga let her imagination run wild, but her hands didn't stop moving. She also took out her flying sword and slashed at the stone wall. Upon seeing this, Yong and Qiu as well as Jin Shi's group of 3, none of them stayed out of the fight. Each of them displayed their own skills and attacked the stone wall with all their might. They'd already encountered the monster several times. Each time they managed to escape safely, but their spiritual aura was constantly being consumed. Moreover, that monster would accurately find them every 2 to 4 hours. For the 5 of them, now was the time to truly fight with their lives on the line. They either ran out of medicinal pills or were injured. If they couldn't break the restriction before the monster found them, the fate that awaited them was self-evident. As for Emo Chenga, Nie Wuxiang, and Jianxin, if the 5 of them were swallowed, the monster would become stronger, and it would be even harder for them to escape. Everyone was fighting with all their might, not being stingy with their spiritual aura. Big brother, my devil aura is almost used up. Yugui put away his magic weapon and whispered to Jin Shi. Emo Chenga hesitated for a moment before she took out a jade bottle from her Chenkuan bag. She then turned around and threw it to them. These are my medicinal pills. Although they're not devil pills, you should be able to use them. Make do. Jin Shi took the bottle and looked at her gratefully. Thank you. Devil cultivators like them absorbed spiritual aura a bit more slowly than devil aura, but in a situation where they didn't have devil pills, they could still replenish their devil aura with spiritual pills. Once the 8 of them ran out of spiritual aura, they would sit in meditation and take medicinal pills. Once they recovered, they would immediately continue. This was a matter of life and death, so none of them dared to be negligent for even a moment. Nearly 2 hours later, a rumbling sound rang out. Nie Wuxiang threw a punch. Finally, the stone wall trembled and a ray of light appeared on its surface, showing that there was an invisible barrier here. Emo Chenga was delighted. It's working. Let's continue. Originally, they couldn't see this restriction. Based on the slight spiritual aura fluctuations, they determined that there should be a node of the restriction here. Now that the ray of light appeared, it confirmed their judgment and also showed that their operation this time was indeed feasible. Seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, the others also looked happy and immersed themselves in their work. However, at this time, Nie Wuxiang suddenly stopped. That monster is coming. Chapter 4:14. Among Jin Shi and the others, Yugui looked panicked. Big brother, what should we do? Jin Shi glared at him and continued to attack the stone wall. What else can we do? Keep going. The others paused for a moment then sped up. This won't do. Only Jianxin said, we have to stop it, otherwise. But what can we use to stop it? Yong Ryu said anxiously, whether it's spells or weapons, they're useless against that monster. Jianxin's gaze fell on Emo Chenga with a pensive expression. Fellow Taoist Qin, your magic weapon? Emo Chenga understood what he meant, so she said, my magic weapon isn't powerful enough, but it's good at defending. Maybe we can try. Jianxin was very satisfied with her initiative. He nodded and said nothing more. Mo Chenga hesitated for a moment, then reached her waist and released all three spiritual beasts, including Fei Fei, who wasn't good at attacking. You three attacked the restriction with all your strength. Fei Fei was fine, but Xiaofan and Xiaohua were released with great difficulty. They were just about to come up when they heard such an order, blinking their eyes in confusion. Mo Chenga said again, "Don't take it lightly. This is a matter of life and death, understand?" "Yes, master," Xiaofan answered obediently, then turned around to attack the restriction. Xiaohua, seeing that Mo Chenga was ignoring it, whimpered aggrievedly, then followed Xiaofan. Fei Fei, on the other hand, didn't say anything and started to help attack the restriction. Seeing her three spiritual beasts, the others widened their eyes and looked at her in surprise. Three spiritual beasts, all of them in the 5th rank, and one of them could speak. This was really shocking. Mo Chenga sighed inwardly. She knew this was a bit ostentatious, so she only released one spiritual beast at most. Now that things had come to a head, she had no choice but to do this. If they could escape, Castellan May would definitely not let them go. Even if they were greedy, they wouldn't have a chance. Only Jianxin and Ye Wuxiang were a bit surprised. The monster's breath was getting closer and closer. Mo Chenga took out several magic weapons. "Fellow Daoist Qin," Jianxin shouted from behind her, "go and stop it now. It's best if you can lure that monster away. If you can't, I'll help you." "Got it." Luring them away was indeed a good idea, but it involved two problems. First, it was trust. If she led the others away, and they broke the restriction without informing her, she would fall behind. And then, City Lord Mei would find out that she was the unlucky one. However, with Nie Wuxiang here, she was willing to believe him this once. The second problem was whether or not the monster could be lured away. After all, there were so many people here. As long as it had some intelligence, it should be able to give up as many as it could. However, this was also uncertain. Who knew what this thing was? Perhaps it had no intelligence at all, only instincts. Mo Chenga tossed these thoughts to the back of her mind, then walked out of the passage with the restriction node and headed in the direction the monster came from. When Mo Chenga saw this monster, she was shocked. This monster's aura was surging, and it was actually much stronger than what they had seen before. Strange, those demonic cultivators who had been turned into puppets were all killed by them, so how could this monster become stronger? Could it be that there was something strange in this cave? She didn't have much time to think. The monster had already discovered her and stopped in front of her, its strange aura surging. Without hesitation, Mo Chenga waved the heaven and earth fan. Countless flowers, grass, and leaves flew out of it and rolled into a ball. However, they didn't roll towards the monster but fell around it and wrapped it up. Direct attack wouldn't work. This was something they had verified, and Ye Wuxiang also indirectly proved it. That being the case, they could only try not to make direct contact with it. Only in this way could they avoid spiritual aura being absorbed by it. Seeing these flowers, grass, and leaves with spiritual aura scattered around it, the monster was indeed confused. It stood in place for a while at a loss before it tried to move forward again. In its opinion, although there were countless scattered spiritual auras around it, they weren't as delicious as the cultivator in front of it. But Mo Chenga didn't give it this chance. As soon as it moved, the heaven and earth fan immediately waved, and the flowers and grass around it rolled up again. They still scattered around it without moving forward or backward, but they coincided with the position of the 8 trigrams, forming a simple formation. The monster paused again as if it didn't know where to go. Mo Chenga wasn't an expert formation master, so she couldn't be like Tianji Qin, who could instantly lay an invisible formation. Her formation could only confuse this monster, making it unable to see the spiritual aura situation in its surroundings for a while. Originally, she was worried that this monster was invisible and didn't know whether the formation would work on it or not. But after seeing its reaction, she felt a little relieved. At least, the direction in which this monster sensed spiritual aura was similar to cultivators, so this formation could also confuse it. However, after several times, the monster simply stopped moving. It stayed in place for a while, then floated forward along the passage. Mo Chenga was shocked. She wanted to continue laying the formation, but Fei Fei's voice suddenly appeared in her mind. "It's useless, master. This thing is stupid, but its intuition is very accurate. You can't confuse it forever." By the time it finished speaking, Fei Fei had already run over from behind. Mo Chenga saw it coming but didn't ask anything. She knew Fei Fei was very smart, so smart that it could judge the situation by itself. She said, "Do you recognize this thing?" Fei Fei shook its head. "Master, my memory isn't omnipotent. I just feel that this thing has the aura of the distant past." The aura of the distant past. Qianga couldn't help but think of those sacrificial temples. Cultivation techniques came from stone tablets came from sacrificial temples, and sacrificial temples were born in the distant past. In that case, it wasn't strange for Fei Fei to feel the aura of the distant past. She didn't have time to think too much. The monster was already very close to her, so she couldn't attack it directly. A simple formation also couldn't trap it, so Qianga was in a dilemma. Boom! Nie Wuxiang's heavy punch landed on the stone wall's restriction. The restriction swayed and flashed with light, but it still managed to hold on. She anxiously turned her head to look. In fact, from this angle she couldn't see the monster. However, she had a treasure on her, so she was much more sensitive to this monster's aura than others. She could clearly feel that Qianga was having a hard time resisting it. Fellow Taoist Jianxin. She turned her head and called out to Jianxin, fellow Taoist Qin. Jianxin was still controlling his flying sword, concentrating on attacking the restriction. Although he was only in the middle stage of the core formation realm, his cultivation level was much higher than Qianga's and Nie Wuxiang's, who had just advanced to the core formation realm. Moreover, he was also a sword cultivator, so the flying sword in his hand shone brightly and was extremely powerful. After retrieving his flying sword, Jianxin swallowed a medicinal pill. He then glanced at Nie Wuxiang and said faintly, "This restriction can't hold on much longer. We have to hurry. When fellow Taoist Qin retreats here, I'll go and help her." Nie Wuxiang still wanted to say something, but in the end she swallowed her words. She didn't really trust this Jianxin, but what he said wasn't unreasonable. This restriction was already on the verge of collapse. Maybe one attack could break it, and Jianxin's attack power was the strongest among them, so it'd be best if he could stay here. However, when she thought of Qianga, who was holding on by herself, she clenched her teeth and sped up her movements. Qianga retreated step by step. Even with Fei Fei's help, she still felt powerless. She didn't know why, but this monster's aura was a lot stronger than before. When they encountered each other before, no matter how she attacked it, it would always return to its original state. This time, however, it could even counterattack. With Ren Yufeng's experience, she didn't dare to directly come into contact with these auras. Who knew what was strange about these auras? As a result, she could only be slowly pushed back by this monster. Fellow Taoist Jianxin. Seeing that she was about to be pushed back to the passage where the restriction was located, Qianga clenched her teeth and shouted, "I can't hold on anymore. Please come and help me." Jianxin naturally heard her plea for help, but he still didn't stop moving his hands. He simply said, "Fellow Taoist, hold on a little longer. We're almost there." Upon hearing this answer, Qianga couldn't help but feel annoyed. She said, "How can I hold on by myself?" Nie Wuxiang also turned around and said, "Fellow Taoist Jianxin, this." Jianxin was indifferent. He coldly glanced at her and said, "This is a crucial moment. I won't leave. If you go and help her, it'll be the same." Nie Wuxiang was also angry. "You said you'd help her, but now you're actually going back on your word." Jianxin's tone was indifferent. "Say whatever you want. If she dies and we can all escape, it'll be worth it." "You?" Nie Wuxiang was seething with anger. She raised her fist, almost wanting to kill Jianxin first. However, her reason reminded her that even if she killed this person now, it wouldn't help at all. She looked around. The other 5 people were all attacking in silence. No one was willing to say anything. Nie Wuxiang couldn't help but sneer. In the past day or so, the 2 of them could be said to have given these 5 people a lot of advice. However, in front of their lives they wouldn't come forward. She clenched her teeth, gave up on continuing to attack the restriction, and turned around to leave. Fellow Taoist Tian Can. At this time, Jianxin's voice came from behind her. "According to my estimation, another cup of tea's time should be enough. Just hold on." Nie Wuxiang paused for a moment. She glared at him, then immediately ran towards Qianga. Qianga had already heard their conversation a moment ago, so she was also very angry in her heart. These past few years she encountered a lot of things, but there were only a few people like Jianxin. You really couldn't judge a book by its cover. This person looked very opinionated, and he didn't seem like a person who would go back on his word. However, she didn't expect that when things came to a head, he would act like this. However, her thoughts were the same as Nie Wuxiang's. Although Jianxin had the intention of abandoning her, now wasn't the time to turn hostile. If she really persisted for another 10 minutes, she would be able to break the restriction. In that case, she could give it her all. However, the current situation wasn't optimistic, and they didn't know whether their efforts were worth it or not. Nie Wuxiang ran over and saw the monster's current appearance. She was shocked. How could it become so powerful? Mo Chenga shook her head. How could she know? Upon seeing Nie Wuxiang's extremely depressed appearance, she asked, "What's wrong?" After a long time, Nie Wuxiang finally exhaled and said helplessly, "This thing's already this powerful, I can't stop it." Mo Chenga was stunned. Among them, the one who was most familiar with this thing was Nie Wuxiang. If even she couldn't do anything, wouldn't that mean they could only let this monster swallow them all? After hesitating for a while, Nie Wuxiang's eyes revealed a resolute expression. "Since that's the case, we can only do this." Chapter 4:15. What are these brats trying to do? City Lord Mei muttered to himself as he stared at the mirror. These juniors were not ordinary core formation cultivators and needed to be more careful. However, he found it interesting to see how busy they were inside the lost cave. He couldn't help but want to see how far they could go. In any case, up until now, everything was still under his control. He already knew that they wanted to break the restriction, but he didn't think much of it. It wasn't difficult to repair a single node of the restriction. Once the restriction was broken and someone escaped from the lost cave, he would immediately capture that person and feed him to the original devil. No matter how strong a few core formation cultivators were, he didn't need to worry about them. Although the difference between core formation and nascent soul was only one level, the difference was like heaven and earth. Right now, the progress of the lost cave was still under his control. He already knew what these people were trying to do, so he naturally prepared for it. However, as he watched, one of the brats puzzled him. Rather than calling it a brat, it was actually a girl. When Elder Liang brought the two girls back to the city lord residence, he discovered this. However, this wasn't a big deal. It wasn't strange for a girl to disguise herself as a man. However, he was still a little surprised. Although these two girls had ordinary cultivations, they had quite a number of spiritual treasures on them. They did not look like ordinary cultivators. Furthermore, their performance in the disorienting cave was indeed remarkable. If it wasn't for the fact that these two cultivated Tao techniques and had nothing to do with him, he would have taken them in as disciples. But now, the girl dressed as a man was blocking his original devil, as if she wanted to do something. What could she do? Could it be that they still didn't understand their situation? All attacks that involved spiritual energy and demonic energy were useless against the original devil. Even if the original devil's aura was temporarily dispersed, it could quickly recover. They had nowhere to run inside the lost cave. Logically, City Lord Mei didn't think that the girl could do anything. However, when he thought of this, his eyebrows twitched uncontrollably. He rubbed his brows and thought to himself, is this an illusion? They were just a few core formation cultivators. With him personally watching over them, what kind of accident could happen? However, in the next moment he abruptly stood up and his face turned pale. How could this be? His reaction shocked the surrounding descending Star City core formation cultivators. Elder Liang hurriedly came forward and called out in fear, "City Lord." However, City Lord Mei didn't pay any attention to him. She snorted coldly and threw the mirror in her hand to the ground. Then she shook her sleeves and flew towards the teleportation array. In an instant, she disappeared into the teleportation array. Elder Liang was puzzled as he watched City Lord Mei disappear. Then he lowered his head to look at the mirror. When he saw the scene in the mirror, an incomparably shocked expression appeared on his face. In the mirror, Nie Wuxiang's entire body was shrouded by a black aura. This black aura was very different from devil aura, as if it had a life of its own and was surging non-stop. Just this scene alone wasn't something to be surprised about. Perhaps this Tianqian was just a demonic cultivator who had concealed himself extremely well. But what made Elder Liang incredulous was that the primal demon, which core formation cultivators like them didn't dare to approach, actually moved back in fear when it saw her. How was this possible? Elder Liang was endlessly shocked. He was the #1 confidant of the City Lord. He was very clear about the process in which the City Lord obtained a new cultivation technique and created the primal demon. This thing had completely surpassed the concept of demonic cultivators in this day and age. It was far more advanced than the devil aura on their bodies. Because of this, the devil aura on the City Lord's body was gradually restrained. It had reached the realm where it could be released from his heart. If one didn't cultivate a special cultivation technique like the City Lord, they would be swallowed the moment they got close to it, let alone control it. But what he saw in front of him clearly wasn't the case. The City Lord had nurtured this primal demon for so long. If it could swallow all these core formation cultivators, it would be able to help the city lord reach the heavens in a single step. But now, it was actually being absorbed by someone else. The more Elder Liang thought about it, the more frightened he felt. Cold sweat dripped down uncontrollably. The reason why they dared to do such a thing was because they had no other choice but to swear loyalty to the city lord. It was also because this plan was meticulous. If it succeeded, they would be like dogs and chickens rising to the heavens if they followed the city lord. But now, if the primal demon was swallowed by someone else, could the city lord's plan still be realized? If the city lord couldn't advance to become a peak-level warrior, how long could Descending Star City survive? Almost all of these people were brought into the city lord's residence by him. Although there were some who didn't have any background, there were many who had strong backing. At least it involved the major sects in Eastern Tang and one of the 3 demon territories in Northern Lin Kingdom. As a nascent soul realm cultivator, the city lord might be able to give up everything and escape. But what about the core formation cultivators? Could they escape the pursuit of the major sects and the demon territories? Brother Liang, what's wrong? Seeing the city lord leave in a rage and noticing his abnormal behavior, the other elders of Descending Star City who were standing slightly further away were slightly terrified. They moved closer and asked softly. Elder Liang wiped the sweat off his face and shook his head. Nothing. He didn't dare to say anything now. It was still unknown whether or not the city lord would be able to subdue these core formation cultivators. If the city lord succeeded in the end and they escaped in advance, then the city lord wouldn't let them go. At this point, for the sake of his own life and future, he could only hope that the city lord could stop this matter and subdue all these core formation cultivators. Ignorant Junior. A shout resounded in the cave. The voice was full of anger. Next, the 8 people felt a powerful aura rushing towards them. Yong Ryu was the first to panic. This is the aura of a nascent soul realm cultivator. A nascent soul realm cultivator actually appeared here. Jinshin paused for a moment then shouted sternly, "Continue." But Yong Ryu's heart was in a mess. There's a nascent soul realm cultivator here, how could we? Pa! With a crisp sound, a strong wind hit Yong Ryu's cheek. Jinshin said angrily, "If you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish right now." Senior Marshal Brother. Chiu Qingrua cried out in fear and rushed forward. Jinshin coldly glanced at her then continued to attack the restriction. That nascent soul realm cultivator's main target wasn't them. They still had a chance to live. Of course, if these 2 people couldn't accomplish anything and caused everyone to be unable to get out, he didn't mind killing them right now. When City Lord Mei's thin figure appeared in front of the 2 of them, Nie Wuxiang was already speechless. Right now, her whole body was wrapped in black aura, and the primordial devil aura in her body was extremely powerful. Even her spiritual aura was completely swallowed by the primordial devil aura. Mo Chenga couldn't tell whether she swallowed the primordial devil aura or was swallowed by the primordial devil aura. But Nie Wuxiang definitely wouldn't be able to move for a while. What should they do now? Seeing that primordial devil aura had already merged with Nie Wuxiang, City Lord Mei was so angry that she trembled. Her youthful face twisted as she glared at the 2 of them fiercely. "You 2 actually ruined my painstaking efforts." Right after she said that, she threw a punch at the stone wall, smashing it into pieces. The whole cave shook along with City Lord Mei's movements. Jinshin saw a flash of light on the restriction, and his face was filled with joy. "Hurry up. The restriction will be broken soon." City Lord Mei's angry action just now happened to give them a helping hand. Without much time to think, Mo Chenga waved the white silk handkerchief and stood in front of City Lord Mei. She then quietly put Nie Wuxiang behind her. She knew she couldn't defeat a nascent soul cultivator, but at this moment, it was impossible for her to ignore Nie Wuxiang. Nie Wuxiang trusted her. Mo Chenga clearly knew that after absorbing the primordial devil aura, she would lose her ability for a while, but she still did it. Mo Chenga didn't want to betray this kind of trust. City Lord Mei stared at the 2 of them and revealed an evil smile. "What? You still want to be my enemy? Overestimating your capabilities." Mo Chenga was very calm. She always had this kind of ability. The more dangerous the situation was, the calmer she became. Holding her magic weapon in her hand, she looked straight at City Lord Mei and said with a flat tone, "It's not that we want to be enemies with City Lord Mei, but City Lord Mei schemed against me first. Our lives are at stake, so even if our strength is inferior, we can only fight." City Lord Mei was stunned when she heard what she said. She then raised her head and laughed loudly. "Only fight? You little girl are really interesting. Unfortunately, no matter how interesting you are, I can only feed you to the primordial devil aura. Once he finished speaking, he fiercely glared at Nye Wuxiang. You want to swallow my primordial devil aura? Dream on. I'm going to eat you too. City Lord Mei waved her sleeves and walked towards them with large strides. A nascent soul cultivator against a core formation cultivator was a battle without any suspense, so City Lord Mei wasn't worried at all. What he was worried about was whether he could get his primordial devil aura back after it was absorbed by this little girl. According to reason, as long as the primordial devil aura still existed, he should be able to absorb it. After all, he was a nascent soul cultivator while this little girl was only a core formation cultivator. It was impossible for her to compete with him. However, this kind of thing had never happened before, so it was hard to be certain. Seeing that City Lord Mei was ignoring her, she wanted to directly grab Nye Wuxiang. Emo Chinga's gaze turned cold. She opened the Lotus Scarlet Umbrella and blocked City Lord Mei's path. City Lord Mei was slightly astonished when she saw her actions. Little girl, do you really want to stop me? He hadn't seen a cultivator like this for many years. She was already in the core formation realm and her strength wasn't weak at all. This junior should know the gap between nascent soul and core formation, right? Emo Chinga didn't say anything. The Lotus Scarlet Umbrella purified the spiritual aura around her body and blocked the devil aura emitted by City Lord Mei. She then moved her hand and threw something. Rumble. After a loud explosion, City Lord Mei flung his sleeves and coldly stared at Emo Chinga. Although your magic weapon is intelligent, you're only a core formation cultivator in the end. Do you think you can injure me like this? His gaze turned cold. He made a hand seal and devil aura gathered between his fingers, ready to attack Emo Chinga. Emo Chinga focused. She knew the spirit cloud's Rui couldn't repel a nascent soul cultivator, but it was good to buy some time. Rumble. Before City Lord Mei's devil aura could attack, another loud explosion was heard. Soon after, Qiu Qingrua's pleasantly surprised voice rang out. The restriction is broken. Chapter 416. Under the covetous gaze of a nascent soul cultivator, Emo Chinga knew it would be very difficult, almost impossible, to escape unscathed. However, at this moment, even if she didn't stand in front of Nye Wuxiang, City Lord Mei still wouldn't let her go. That being the case, she might as well stake it all. Emo Chinga was confident that she still had a chance. Once the restriction was broken, the others didn't stop and escaped one after another. In the blink of an eye, the atmosphere around them disappeared. City Lord Mei snorted coldly and said disdainfully, "Juniors, I'll let you roam freely for a while." In his opinion, killing these two little girls in front of him was only a matter of time. Once he was free, killing these people would be as easy as flipping his hand. If they wanted to escape, then let them escape. In any case, they couldn't escape from his palm. With this thought in mind, City Lord Mei's gaze turned cold. Her right hand suddenly turned into a claw and suddenly extended to grab Emo Chinga. Right at that moment, a sharp whistling sound was heard. A talisman appeared in Emo Chinga's hand and turned into a dazzling white light, attacking City Lord Mei. The aura of a nascent soul cultivator. City Lord Mei was shocked. How could it have the aura of a nascent soul cultivator? Could it be that this little girl? No, it was only a talisman that sealed the power of a nascent soul cultivator's magic weapon? After realizing this, he felt relieved. It seems this little girl's identity is also extraordinary. She actually has such a treasure. However, the power released by the talisman greatly astonished City Lord Mei. This kind of power was no different from a real nascent soul cultivator's attack. How was this possible? Taking advantage of City Lord Mei dodging, Emo Chinga grabbed Nye Wuxiang and ran towards the place where the restriction was broken. On the way, she didn't forget to put the spiritual beasts into her spiritual beast pouch. No matter how smart Fei Fei was, it was useless at this time. Although Xiaofan and Xiaohua could help, they would lose their lives if they were careless in the hands of a nascent soul cultivator. That being the case, she might as well put them into her spiritual beast pouch and escape. Even if she couldn't escape, they could at most become other people's spiritual beasts. Junior, where do you think you're going? City Lord Mei shouted. However, the power of that talisman was extraordinary. By the time she got rid of it, Emo Chinga had already escaped from the place where the restriction was broken. City Lord Mei was extremely angry. She had thought that there were only a few core formation cultivators, but she had underestimated them in the end. City Lord Mei coldly snorted as she thought of this. She waved her sleeves and flew out of the place where the restriction had been broken. She was too naive to think that she could escape from his heart with just a talisman. Once she jumped out of the cave, Mo Chinga swept her gaze around and discovered that several people who escaped earlier than them were currently fighting with core formation cultivators from Descending Stars City. She snorted coldly in her heart. Although these people weren't her enemies, they used her and Ye Wuxiang to stall City Lord Mei while they escaped. They really weren't good companions. Since that was the case, she would not be meddlesome even if these people were stopped. Instead, she was elated. As such, these Descending Star City cultivators all had a target and no one stopped her. Of course, even so, she might not be able to escape because behind her was the only nascent soul cultivator. That talisman was something she prepared for Qin Shi before she left. Although it had the power of a nascent soul cultivator's magic weapon, it wasn't a real nascent soul cultivator's attack. In just a moment, City Lord Mei would be able to escape. It could be said that City Lord Mei's situation was the most serious. Time was of the essence. She searched her Qingquan bag and took out the land-shrinking ruler she got from Mo Yaoqing. In terms of speed, even if she had a top-grade flying magic weapon, cloud-treading boots, she still wouldn't be able to get rid of a nascent soul cultivator. She could only use her magic weapon to increase the distance between them and then think of a way to enter the virtual sky world. "Where do you think you're going?" City Lord Mei shouted angrily behind her. Mo Chinga's heart skipped a beat, and a wave of despair welled up in her heart. She actually didn't even have a chance to use the land-shrinking ruler? Nevertheless, even if she felt even more despair, she wouldn't resign herself to death. Seeing City Lord Mei aggressively rushing out, Mo Chinga unfolded the heaven and earth fan in her hand, using offense as defense and unceremoniously counterattacked. Upon seeing this, City Lord Mei was so angry that she actually laughed. "You're just a grain of rice, yet you dare to compete under the sun and the moon?" Right after she finished speaking, she shook her arms, and the devil aura that was originally well restrained suddenly surged out. It was several times more powerful than Elder Liang and the others. Even Ye Wuxiang, who was currently surrounded by primordial devil aura, couldn't compare to it. It was only now that City Lord Mei truly revealed her strength. A nascent soul cultivator, even if she was only in the early stage of the nascent soul realm, wasn't someone core formation cultivators like them could resist. Nevertheless, Mo Chinga clenched her teeth, unwilling to retreat. As soon as they arrived in Starfall City, they'd already stepped into City Lord Mei's trap. Right now they had no other way out but to fight. Therefore, she risked her serious injuries and used the power of her magic weapon, spiritual talisman, and the heaven and earth fan to meet them. City Lord Mei sneered. She already knew the power of the magic weapon and spiritual talisman in Mo Chinga's hands, so she chose to dodge for the time being. At the same time, she didn't forget to use her devil aura to block their way. Right at this moment, a clanging sound was heard. It was as if a sharp weapon had been unsheathed. Soon after, it emitted a sharp whistling sound as it pierced towards City Lord Mei. City Lord Mei dodged Mo Chinga's magic weapon and spiritual talisman while preventing them from taking the opportunity to escape. It wasn't until the sword aura enveloped her that she realized someone was sneak attacking her from behind. "Who is it?" City Lord Mei's face twisted in anger. Which brat actually dared to sneak attack a nascent soul cultivator like her? What made her even more furious was that this person's sword aura was soundless. While she was distracted, she actually didn't notice it. At this moment, Mo Chinga couldn't help but be startled when she saw Jianxin standing not too far behind her. Although she'd only known this Jianxin for several hours in the cave and didn't know much about him, his previous way of doing things really made her dislike him. He asked her to block the monster, but in the end he refused to lend her a helping hand. Clearly he only had benefits in his eyes and was extremely selfish. But now, he unexpectedly didn't take the opportunity to escape and instead helped her? Jianxin merely glanced at her coldly, then waved his hand, once again creating thousands upon thousands of sword auras which ruthlessly attacked City Lord Mei. Now wasn't the time to investigate the reason. Mo Chinga clenched her teeth, took out a handful of magic weapons and spiritual talismans from her sleeve, then threw them all out. Every magic weapon and spiritual talisman made by a nascent soul cultivator was extremely precious. Any core formation cultivator who got their hands on them would treasure them as their last life-saving measure. Mo Chinga didn't even count them. She directly grabbed a handful and threw them out. There were 7 or 8 of them. If other core formation cultivators saw this, they would definitely feel extremely distressed. Mo Chinga naturally felt distressed. Before she left, her master and Qin Shi both prepared magic weapons and spiritual talismans for her. However, these things were precious. Even if the two nascent soul cultivators weren't stingy, she only had a dozen or so talismans on her. After this round of throwing, she only had 2 or 3 left. No matter how precious an item was, it couldn't be more precious than her life. At this moment, as long as she could preserve her life, she wouldn't be stingy even if she had to give up all the treasures she had. The light from the magic weapons and spiritual talismans shone, shining together with the light from Jianxin's sword aura. For a moment, the sky was filled with dazzling rays of light. The spiritual aura in the surroundings was even more intense and turbulent. City Lord Mei bellowed in the light, "You juniors." Relying on his high cultivation level, he thought it would be easy to capture them, but unexpectedly he was repeatedly plotted against by these juniors. City Lord Mei was trapped in the spiritual aura and couldn't escape for a while. As for the other cultivators in Descending Star City, under the power of these nascent soul cultivators' magic weapons and spiritual talismans, their hands and feet were tied. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Mo Qianga didn't think too much about it. She pulled Nie Wuxiang, held the land-shrinking ruler and rapidly fled into the distance. The situation was urgent, so she had to run a certain distance to give herself time to use the land-shrinking ruler. As soon as the land-shrinking ruler was activated, City Lord Mei would have to spend some time to find her. At that time, she could use that short period of time to enter the virtual sky world. Just as she fled, City Lord Mei escaped from the magic weapons and spiritual talismans. His eyes were burning with anger as he stared furiously in the direction Mo Qianga disappeared. He waved the devil aura around his body and immediately turned into a black flight light, chasing after Mo Qianga. He couldn't care less about the others. It didn't matter if the others escaped or died. The most important thing now was to capture the little girl who had swallowed his Yuan Mo and dismember the other junior to vent the hatred in his heart. As for whether he could advance to the late stage of the nascent soul realm in one fell swoop, he couldn't care less now. In the worst case, he was a nascent soul cultivator. At worst, he could abandon Descending Star City and escape by himself. Thinking up to this point, City Lord Mei once again gnashed his teeth in hatred. His plan was foolproof. If he hadn't met these juniors, he would have finished cultivating his primordial devil. As long as he swallowed it, he would be able to advance to the late stage of the nascent soul realm in one fell swoop and become a top cultivator in Yunzhong. At that time, he could build Descending Star City into a powerful force not inferior to the 3 devil territories and become one of the top cultivators in Yunzhong who could call the wind and summon the rain. But now, he didn't know if he could take back his primordial devil, and he couldn't swallow all of these core formation cultivators. Mo Qianga didn't even have the time to turn her head to look. Based on the momentum behind her, she already knew City Lord Mei had caught up to her. Fortunately, the land-shrinking ruler could increase her speed and the cloud-treading boots were top-grade magic weapons. City Lord Mei wouldn't be able to catch up to her for a while if she fled with all her might. Nevertheless, the distance between the two of them was getting shorter and shorter. If this continued, she would eventually be caught by City Lord Mei and it would be difficult for her to escape death. What should I do? Mo Qianga's mind raced. Junior, where do you think you're going? City Lord Mei's sharp voice rang out from behind her. A powerful devil aura rushed towards the two of them. Mo Qianga's brows twitched. She didn't expect City Lord Mei to be able to launch a devil aura attack from such a distance. Mo Qianga waved the white silk handkerchief, causing a fog to surround the two of them. She then took out a diamond talisman and slapped it on her body. Even if her chances of escaping alive were very small, she still had to fight until the end. She absolutely couldn't resign herself to death. Seeing the devil aura rushing towards her with a soaring momentum, Mo Qianga only had enough time to open the heaven and earth fan in her haste to block the devil aura behind her. She didn't have much hope in blocking it. Even if she had a lot of magic weapons, how could she possibly block the attack of a nascent soul cultivator? Even if she could survive this attack, she would most likely be seriously injured. Puff. The pain she expected came. A wave of power penetrated the white silk handkerchief's defense, the diamond talisman's protective cover, and the heaven and earth fan's obstruction, directly penetrating her chest. Her aura surged and she couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Am I really going to die? This thought emerged in her mind. She had experienced so many dangerous situations, but none of them had made her feel as close to death as she did today. But she couldn't bear to die. How could she bear to die? Thousands of miles away in the celestial pole, there was still someone waiting for her to return. Ah! An unexpected scream rang out. It was City Lord Mei's voice. Mo Qianga endured the pain and hurriedly turned her head to look. However, what she saw left her dumbfounded. City Lord Mei, who was still quite a distance away from her, had the devil aura all over her body curled into a ball. It seemed she was seriously injured. At that moment, the heaven and earth fan in her hand suddenly emitted an incomparably pure and powerful aura. Emo Chenga didn't have time to think. She turned her head and saw the bewildering trace fog not too far away. She pulled Nia Wushang, then ran towards that direction. Chapter 417. Inside the nameless valley, it was a complete mess. Under the power of the magic talismans, the transporting formation on the ground was destroyed. None of the cultivators from Descending Star City were spared. All of them were seriously injured. As for the other cultivators who escaped from the disorienting cave, Jin Shi and the other two didn't have enough medicinal pills. Yu Gue was already dead, and Yong and Chiu weren't much better off. Their lives were hanging by a thread. The only one who was still in good condition was the sword cultivator Jianxin. Although he took the initiative to attack Mei City, City Lord Mei's target was Nia Wushang and Emo Chenga, so she ignored him. Therefore, he was only injured by City Lord Mei's devil aura. Right at this moment, a person flew out of the broken restriction node. This person was dressed in black. He was tall, had a gloomy expression, and his hands were hidden in his sleeves. The spiritual aura around him surged. When he lifted his sleeves, a silver light could be vaguely seen. He looked coldly in the direction City Lord Mei disappeared, then lowered his head to look at the scene. He snorted coldly and waved his right hand. A gust of devil aura gushed out and hit the bodies of the seriously injured cultivators. Elder Liang, who was seriously injured but hadn't died, was indescribably shocked. You didn't die. The person sneered and said gloomily, "Do you think I'm a bunch of idiots?" He lifted his silver fake hand and smashed a mass of devil aura on Elder Liang's body. Elder Liang, who was already seriously injured, instantly stopped breathing. The person didn't stop moving. With a mass of devil aura in his hand, he instantly killed almost all the people present, including the cultivators from Descending Star City and the cultivators who were deceived like him. Although these people were seriously injured, judging from this person's effortless performance, his strength was obviously extraordinary. Seeing this, Jianxin shook his sleeves. His flying sword emitted a clear cry and stared at the person with extreme vigilance. The person just glanced at him and didn't intend to attack. He raised his hand and put the Qingquan bags of the devil cultivators into his bag. He said expressionlessly, "You can have the rest." Right after he said that, he shook his sleeves and flew in the opposite direction of City Lord Mei. Jianxin heaved a sigh of relief. He covered his chest and coughed. Before he entered the secret place, he had already noticed this person. He was also at the peak of the middle stage of core formation. With just a glance, he could tell that this person's fake hands were extraordinarily powerful and definitely not someone easy to deal with. Sure enough, this person had been hiding in the cave while they had been battling with City Lord Mei. He hadn't revealed a single trace of himself. So, he had easily escaped after they had lured City Lord Mei away. Now that both of them were injured, this person actually didn't forget to seize the opportunity to kill them and seize their treasures after coming out of the cave. He was truly meticulous, ruthless, and greedy. Fortunately, this person did not intend to be his enemy. Although he was injured, he wasn't as badly injured as the others. If they were to fight, they might not necessarily lose to him. Since he was so smart, he would naturally take advantage of the situation and leave. If he stayed here any longer, who knew what would happen? Thinking up to this point, Jianxin raised his head to look in the direction Emo Tienga and the others fled. A hint of worry flashed in his eyes. He remembered that the bewildering trace fog was in that direction. If the two of them were lucky and could enter the bewildering trace fog, they would still have a chance to escape. However, under the pursuit of a nascent soul cultivator, would they be able to hold on until then? Jianxin thought for a while, then shook his head. He picked up the remaining Qingquan bags on the ground, summoned his flying sword, and also fled in the opposite direction. He treasured his own life more. Now that things had come to this, he could only pray for good luck for them. At this moment, Mo Chenga was running frantically. She didn't know why City Lord Mei was blocked by the heaven and earth fan, but now wasn't the time to investigate this. Fortunately, this time, City Lord Mei's breath was getting farther and farther away. He didn't chase after her even after she safely entered the bewildering trace fog. Mo Chenga breathed a sigh of relief. At this distance, she didn't even need the land-shrinking ruler to have enough time to enter the virtual sky world. She looked down at the still unconscious Nia Wushang and noticed that her primordial devil aura had spread to her hand. A trace of hesitation flashed in her eyes, but in the end she still pressed the space between her eyebrows and activated the virtual sky world. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. City Lord May's breath was still so far away. Finally, the pearl between her eyebrows shone brightly, engulfing both her and Ye Wuxiang. Seeing the familiar small house and flowing water again, Mo Chinga sat paralyzed in the small house, almost unable to move, as if all the strength in her body had been sucked out. It wasn't only because she was attacked by City Lord May, causing the spiritual breath in her body to surge and seriously injured, but also because she was so nervous that she was almost on the verge of collapse. Strictly speaking, the crisis this time wasn't as dangerous as the one on Demonic Mountain. However, at that time she had Qinshi by her side. He was very experienced, so he often avoided danger in advance. This time, however, she was almost single-handedly facing the pursuit of a nascent soul cultivator. After closing her eyes to rest for a while, she suddenly heard Nye Wuxiang groan. Mo Chinga opened her eyes and was shocked to see Nye Wuxiang, who was thrown aside by her. Ever since she absorbed that monster, Nye Wuxiang's whole body had been enveloped by primordial devil aura. She was like a silkworm spinning a cocoon, completely motionless. At this very moment, the primordial devil aura around her body began to surge incessantly, as if it was very restless. Mo Chinga carefully observed for a while and discovered that the primordial devil aura and the spiritual aura in the virtual sky world seemed to be fighting. How could this be? She muttered to herself. While she was pondering, she suddenly felt a pain in her left hand. She looked down and saw that it was eroded by primordial devil aura when she pulled Nye Wuxiang to escape. Primordial devil aura was very similar to the dead aura she encountered before. They both had corrosive power. Therefore, before she entered the virtual sky world, she was worried that primordial devil aura would also prevent her from entering the virtual sky world. In that case, she could only hide in the mystifying trace fog and play hide-and-seek with City Lord May. Fortunately, that didn't happen. Compared to dead aura, this primordial devil aura was a bit less violent and a bit purer. But when she was certain that primordial devil aura and the virtual sky world didn't conflict, she discovered that the situation wasn't that simple. If this primordial devil aura was the purest devil aura from the distant past era, then the spiritual aura in the virtual sky world was also the purest spiritual aura in the world today. In that case, it wasn't impossible for the two to conflict. Seeing that the confrontation between the devil aura and the spirit aura was becoming more and more violent, Mo Chinga hesitated for a moment and laid a formation around Nye Wuxiang to block the spiritual aura outside. After a while, Nye Wuxiang slowly calmed down and continued to fall into a deep sleep, which made Mo Chinga heave a sigh of relief. From the looks of it, Nye Wuxiang probably wouldn't wake up in a short time. The monster from before was so powerful that it could be said it surpassed Nye Wuxiang's realm. Under such circumstances, Nye Wuxiang's behavior was basically absorbing the monster's primordial devil aura by force. If she wanted to wake up, she would have to turn all the primordial devil aura into her own. In that case, it would take at least a year for her to wake up. This made Mo Chinga happy on one hand and worried on the other. She was happy because she could leave the virtual sky world before Nye Wuxiang woke up, so she wouldn't have to explain anything to her. But she was worried because she would have to take care of Nye Wuxiang for some time. In any case, the situation was already like this, so she could only let nature take its course. After thinking up to this point, Mo Chinga took a short rest and ordered the 2 stone sculpture puppets to clean up a wooden house. She then carefully laid a formation inside the wooden house to isolate the spiritual aura. Afterward, she moved Nye Wuxiang into that house and left her to fend for herself. She couldn't help Nye Wuxiang digest the primordial devil aura at all. Now she could only rely on Nye Wuxiang herself. If she could absorb all the primordial devil aura, she might even be able to profit from the disaster and her cultivation level would rise greatly. But if she couldn't absorb it completely, she might have to suffer a backlash. As for what the consequences would be, Mo Chinga couldn't guess. After dealing with Nye Wuxiang, she released the 3 spiritual beasts and sent them to cultivate on their own. As for herself, she regulated her breathing for several days. After temporarily controlling her injuries, she began to think about this matter. There were a lot of things left in City Lord May's matter. First of all, her injuries weren't light. Nye Wuxiang needed several years to digest the primordial devil aura, so she might also need several years to completely recover from her remaining injuries. Second, she was eroded by the primordial devil aura. Although it wasn't serious, it would take some time to force it out of her body. Finally, she couldn't figure out why City Lord May was injured. While she was healing her injuries, Mo Chenga recalled the situation at that time over and over again. The white silk handkerchief, the diamond talisman, and the heaven and earth fan. These three treasures allowed her to survive City Lord May's attack, but she only suffered serious injuries. The white silk handkerchief and the diamond talisman didn't have any problems. Only the heaven and earth fan emitted a strong and vast sacred aura at that time. But when she took out the heaven and earth fan afterward, it was still the same as before. She couldn't find that kind of aura at all. If she remembered correctly, this aura should be the divine dragon's aura she once felt in the divine dragon sacrificial temple. The land of hiding dragon collapsed, the divine dragon sacrificial temple disappeared, and the dragon bones were also scattered all over the ground. At that time the divine dragon's aura was a lot weaker. After she picked it up and made it into the heaven and earth fan, the divine dragon's aura became even harder to detect. This made her wonder whether the method of refining the magic weapon was wrong. After all, even Mo Yaoqing couldn't refine the heaven and earth fan. However, she told her that the method of refining the magic weapon should be correct. It was just that even when Mo Yaoqing conceived this magic weapon, she didn't expect that someone would actually use dragon bones to refine it, right? After all, the bones of ordinary demonic beasts above the 8th rank were just hard to break, but they wouldn't have such a powerful aura. Mo Chenga accepted this explanation. In any case, after the experiment, this heaven and earth fan was refined with dragon bones and was extremely tough. This was an obvious benefit. However, she never expected that this thing would actually emit such a strong divine dragon's aura one day. Could it be that after these dragon bones were refined, the dragon's aura didn't actually disperse but was hidden deep inside? Thinking of this possibility, Mo Chenga became excited. If that was the case, the power of her heaven and earth fan wouldn't just be what it was now. If she could stimulate that vast and sacred divine dragon's aura, her heaven and earth fan would definitely be comparable to those ancient spiritual treasures. But how could she stimulate this divine dragon's aura? She carefully recalled the scene at that time. City Lord May's devil aura attack. Right. Primordial devil aura. Although City Lord May couldn't absorb that monster, she cultivated that mysterious technique, so she also had primordial devil aura in her body. Chapter 418. Master. Upon hearing Feifei's voice, Mo Chenga opened her eyes. This was the 5th year since she escaped from City Lord May and hid inside the virtual sky world. During these 5 years she never went out. First, she spent 1 year to force the primordial devil aura out of her hand. Then she spent the next 4 years in closed-door meditation to recuperate and heal her injuries. A nascent soul cultivator's attack was no small matter. Although she managed to escape, her injuries weren't light. After these 5 years she still hadn't fully recovered. Based on her own estimation, it would take another 4 to 5 years. Mo Chenga sighed. Seriously speaking, it was still because her foundation wasn't solid enough. Back when she was in the foundation building realm, she took advantage of Zhong Muling's 5 spirit fruit and advanced from the early stage to the middle stage in one fell swoop, saving her more than 10 years. Later, for the sake of forming her gold core, she patiently slowed down her cultivation speed. This was both for the sake of her mental state and for the sake of her weak foundation. Because of this, she didn't encounter any difficulties when she formed her gold core. Now her problem was similar to that year. She formed her gold core at the age of 86 and advanced to the middle stage in just 13 years. This time, although it wasn't as exaggerated as when she was in the foundation building realm, she was still able to advance so quickly because she took advantage of dual cultivation. A weak foundation was bound to bring about an unstable cultivation state. Even though she traveled all over the world for the sake of cultivating her mental state and came to Yunzhong, which was a vast ocean away, she still couldn't completely solve this problem. Now she was only 106 years old. Not only was she already in the middle stage of the core formation realm, but she even wasted several years recuperating. If this matter were to spread, it would really be shocking. After she carefully considered her injuries this time, she felt it might not be a disaster. After she was injured, she had to spend time recuperating and recuperating. Only in this way could she restore her cultivation level before she was injured. This way she would have the opportunity to slowly lay a more solid foundation. After all, her goal was to advance to the nascent soul realm and then advance to the deification realm to become an immortal. Master, I'm calling you. Can't you hear me? Feifei's delicate voice rang out, but its tone was very hateful. Mo Chenga felt a bit helpless. Ever since Feifei awakened, she felt she had completely lost her dignity as a master. However, she also felt it was very boring to argue with a spiritual beast about this, so she just let it be. What do you want to say? Emochenga asked. Feifei raised its paw and pointed at the hut next door. There seems to be some movement over there. She was the one who tidied up that small hut for Nie Wuxiang to live in for the time being. Ever since Nie Wuxiang swallowed the primordial devil aura 5 years ago, there hadn't been any movements. Since Nie Wuxiang had to heal herself, she didn't pay much attention to it. Feifei, on the other hand, often ran over to take a look with great interest. Therefore, Emochenga was relieved to let Feifei take care of Nie Wuxiang. Although this little fellow's personality was a little hateful, it was extremely intelligent. There was no need to treat it as a spirit beast at all. There was basically nothing to worry about that was given to it. There had been no change in the past 5 years, but now there was actually a change. For the time being, Emochenga stopped treating her injuries. She stood up and walked towards the small room. Through the small room's window, Emochenga saw that the primordial devil aura surrounding Nie Wuxiang seemed to have mostly disappeared. Her aura, on the other hand, was much more stable. Apparently, Nie Wuxiang had already absorbed more than half of the primordial devil aura in the past 5 years. At the very least, she wouldn't suffer from a backlash. As for the movement mentioned by Feifei, she observed for a while and found that Nie Wuxiang's breath was heavy, seemingly showing signs of waking up. Emochenga furrowed her brows. Master, do you want to throw her out? Feifei suggested mischievously from the side. Emochenga rolled her eyes at it. In fact, whether it was Feifei, Xiaofan or Xiaohua, none of them were very friendly to other people who invaded this area. Back when Qin was here, Xiaofan wasn't and Feifei hadn't awakened yet. But at that time, Feifei and Xiaohua were already indifferent to Qin. This time, she brought Nie Wuxiang inside, so the attitude of these 3 spiritual beasts was even more obvious. Xiaohua completely ignored them, Xiaofan occasionally complained, and Feifei even said from time to time that it wanted to throw her out. However, in any case, she was still their master, so they didn't dare to really do anything. Feifei had also always been taking good care of Nie Wuxiang. What else can we do? Feifei lightly jumped onto her back, put its hand on her shoulder and looked inside through the window. Who knows when she'll wake up? What should we do then? This secret is no small matter. Emochenga reached out and flicked it off her shoulder. She said, "Get ready to go out." Feifei was stunned. Are we really going to throw her out? Emochenga stared at it with a faint smile. Weren't you just persuading me to throw her out? Why are you soft-hearted now? I'm not soft-hearted. Feifei pursed its lips and said, It's just that you're soft-hearted, master. You definitely won't really throw her out. Having a spiritual beast that was too smart wasn't necessarily a good thing. Emochenga shook her head and used her divine comprehension to call Xiaofan and Xiaohua. Both of you go into the spiritual beast bag. We're going out. Xiaohua couldn't speak, so it stared at her with puzzled eyes. Xiaofan, on the other hand, shouted, Master, what about your injury? Before Emochenga could answer, Feifei interrupted, Master, you're not going out to fight. What does it matter? But Feifei's attitude made Xiaofan very angry, but it didn't have Feifei's guts. In front of its master, it didn't dare to fight back. It's all right. Emochenga promptly said, We're just going out to do something. It's been so long, there won't be any problems. As she spoke, she pulled Xiaohua over first and stuffed it into the spiritual beast bag. Xiaofan and Feifei did the same. Seeing her insistence, they could only obediently jump in. Once everything was ready, Emochenga took out a pair of gloves from her Qingkuan bag and put them on. These gloves were made from the natural silk brocade she left behind after refining the heaven and earth fan. Apart from the hard-to-find Qiyun stone and the 1,000-year-old chalcedony, she had spent a lot of money to buy the other materials, so she still had some left. Since she couldn't touch Nie Wuxiang directly, she took out the natural silk brocade and made this pair of gloves. As long as she put on the gloves and touched Nie Wuxiang, she wouldn't be eroded by her primordial devil aura. Once everything was done, she opened the small house's restriction and pulled Nie Wuxiang out of the virtual sky world. As soon as they left the virtual sky world, they felt a gust of cold wind. Emochenga looked around. The surroundings were still foggy. She spread her divine sense, but she still didn't sense any cultivator's auras. It had been 5 years, so City Lord May naturally wouldn't still be here waiting to hunt them down. Besides, his plan had failed and he'd killed so many core formation cultivators with powerful backgrounds. Afterward, he'd definitely become the enemy of various forces. Those forces had many late-stage nascent soul cultivators, so he probably couldn't protect himself. Emo Chinga put away her thoughts and looked at Nya Wushang. After a moment of contemplation, she took out a black robe from her Qingquan bag and firmly covered Nya Wushang. This black robe was only ordinary clothing and couldn't hide her primordial devil aura. However, this way she looked no different from a devil cultivator and wouldn't arouse other people's suspicion. Soon after, Emo Chinga supported Nya Wushang and chose a direction opposite to Descending Star City. When she entered the bewildering trace fog, she didn't go too deep, so it only took her some time to leave. This fog only made people lose their sense of direction. It didn't have any other disadvantages. After flying north for about an hour, Emo Chinga finally saw a city between the mountains. Balan country was mostly mountainous, so most of the devil areas were located in the mountain ranges. The city under her feet was also filled with thick devil aura, which was a bit thicker than Descending Star City. It should also be a devil area. Emo Chinga didn't hesitate and descended. Although this devil area was close to Descending Star City, its scale was much larger than Descending Star Cities. It shouldn't have anything to do with City Lord Mei, so she could rest assured. Soon she landed in front of the city's gate. In general, all cities belonging to cultivators had a no-fly order, so it was better to walk into the city and abide by the rules. The city was very tall. The city walls were made of an unknown material, but they were actually pitch black. A flag with a ghost face was fluttering on top of the city wall. At first glance, Emo Chinga felt this ghost face was very familiar. After carefully examining it, she remembered that she saw Yang Qingji's ghost face banner several years ago. It looked exactly like this. Could this be Guifang City? Emo Chinga muttered in her heart, then walked towards the devil cultivator guarding the city. When the devil cultivator saw her and Nya Wushang, he didn't dare to neglect them and asked politely, "Seniors, are you here to travel or to visit a friend?" Sure enough, this was Guifang City. Emo Chinga's expression was as usual. She said faintly, "My friend is injured, so we're looking for a place to stay." The devil cultivator had already noticed Nya Wushang. Judging from her momentum, she was obviously a powerful devil cultivator, but she was being supported by a Dao cultivator. He looked a bit strange. He originally wanted to ask again, but he didn't expect Emo Chinga to answer him. Maybe it was because Emo Chinga's expression was too calm, or maybe it was because their cultivation levels were enough to intimidate him, but the foundation-building devil cultivator only looked at them once before he moved aside. According to the rules of our Guifang City, as long as you don't do anything harmful to Guifang City, any cultivator is free to come and go. Seniors, please. Emo Chinga nodded at him, then helped Nya Wushang into the city. Since this was Guifang City, it should be safe. They had met Yang Qingji once before, and their cooperation was quite pleasant. There were no conflicts between them. Guifang City was one of the 3 great devil areas, so it shouldn't have anything to do with Descending Star City, so they didn't need to worry about City Lord Mei. With this thought in mind, Emo Chinga casually stopped a devil cultivator passing by. "Excuse me," that devil cultivator had just entered the aura refining realm, so he was rather flattered to be stopped by a core formation cultivator. He stuttered, "Senior, what orders do you have?" Emo Chinga calmly asked, "Do you know if there are any inns in the city that rent immortals' caves?" Upon hearing this question, the devil cultivator calmed down a bit. He bowed and answered, "Senior, I don't know if other inns can rent immortals' caves, but the biggest inn in our Guifang City definitely can." "Where's that inn?" The devil cultivator pointed at the other end of the street. "What a coincidence. That inn is nearby. Senior, please look. If you go this way, you'll see the tallest one. It's called Immortal Devil Residence." Emo Chinga nodded. She casually took out a spirit stone and tossed it to him. "Thank you." The devil cultivator was delighted to receive the spirit stone. "Thank you, Senior." Although devil cultivators like them couldn't use spirit stones directly, they could use them as money. A spirit stone was very precious to a cultivator who had just entered the aura refining realm like him. After putting away the spirit stone, the devil cultivator raised his head, only to see Emo Chinga and Nya Wushang's figures had already disappeared from the street. He couldn't help but reveal an envious expression. "When can I have such a high cultivation level?" Chapter 419. When they arrived at Immortal Devil Abode, Emo Chinga spent some spirit stones to rent an immortal's cave. As soon as the shopkeeper saw them, he invited them into the VIP room to entertain them. Then, seeing that they were traveling together and their cultivation levels were quite high, he suggested renting a high-grade immortal's cave on the mountain behind Guifang City. Although it was expensive, it was very quiet and wouldn't be disturbed easily. Moreover, these immortals' caves could also provide devil aura-blocking formations according to the requirements of the guests. Many foreign high-level cultivators liked to rent such immortals' caves. Mo Qingge felt that she and Ye Wuxiang really needed a quiet place in their current situation, so she followed the shopkeeper's suggestion. In any case, she could afford that little bit of money. After deciding on a temporary residence, Mo Qingge didn't take Ye Wuxiang there immediately. Instead, she asked about other things. "Shopkeeper, it's my first time in Guifang City, so I don't know much about the situation here. Could you explain it to me?" The shopkeeper was just a high-level aura-refining cultivator who hadn't built his foundation yet. Hearing a core formation cultivator's question, he didn't dare to be negligent and said politely, "What does Senior want to know?" "As long as I know, I'll tell you everything I know." Mo Qingge smiled and said, "It's not that serious. It's just that I'm an ascetic cultivator and rarely go out. This is my first time in Guifang City, so I don't know much about the situation here, so I'm just asking. Shopkeeper, you don't need to be restrained. If there's anything you need to pay attention to in Guifang City, just tell me." Upon hearing this, the shopkeeper bowed and said, "Senior is too polite. It's just a piece of cake." After a pause, the shopkeeper said slowly, "I think Senior knows that Guifang City is one of the 3 devil territories in Yunzhong. The city lord, Guifang Devil Monarch, is one of the 3 devil monarchs in Yunzhong and has extraordinary strength. Compared with the other 2 devil territories, the biggest feature of our Guifang City is freedom. In our Guifang City, both devil cultivators and righteous path cultivators are treated equally. Moreover, we're free to come and go in Guifang City. No matter what kind of cultivator you are, you only need to tell us why you're here and you won't be questioned when you leave. Of course, cultivators who are active in Guifang City must ensure 2 things. First, you can't harm the interests of Guifang City. Second, you can't fight in the city and hurt others. As long as you can do these 2 things, you'll be completely unrestrained in Guifang City." Mo Qingge's heart stirred. The city of Devil Path actually had such open-minded people? What if someone disobeys the rules? The shopkeeper smiled when he heard this. He looked as if he didn't take it seriously and said proudly, "Senior, you worry too much. Who in the entire Yunzhong doesn't know that our city lord's cultivation is unfathomable? Moreover, the city lord's way of handling matters couldn't be more fair. In front of him, regardless of the level of cultivation, only the facts were spoken. As long as one followed the rules, one would receive the city lord's protection. If one didn't follow the rules, one would be killed on the spot. Therefore, there are all kinds of cultivators in Guifang City. Many cultivators who have committed crimes outside will choose to hide in Guifang City temporarily. However, even if there are many ferocious people gathered in the city, these people don't dare to be presumptuous in our Guifang City." "I see. It sounded like this Guifang City was an excellent hiding place. She happened to come to the most suitable place by accident. In that case, no one will come to disturb us if we stay here for the time being?" "Of course," the shopkeeper said. "If Senior doesn't want people to disturb you, you only need to set a small restriction outside the cave and refuse to receive sound-transmitting talismans. In this way, other people will know Senior's intention and won't come to disturb you." "That's good." Mo Qingge thought for a while, then took out a small bag of spirit stones from her Qingquan bag and put it on the table. "Here are 2,000 spirit stones. We'll temporarily rent this place for 3 years. You can arrange it." Seeing that she was so generous, the shopkeeper couldn't help but feel happy. He smiled flatteringly again and again. Yes. Senior, please follow me. Junior will take Senior to choose an immortal's cave." "And?" Mo Qingge nodded slightly. She still helped Nye Wuxiang up and followed the shopkeeper out of the VIP lounge and out of the inn. Probably because Mo Qingge paid the spirit stones too readily, the shopkeeper also gave her a lot of information along the way. From the infighting between Guifang Devil Monarch's disciples to the news of the marketplace, as long as she showed a little bit of interest, he told her everything he knew. Mo Qingge still remembered when she saw Yang Qingji in the Cloud Ascending Cranes group. Although she didn't say it out loud, she was secretly surprised. With Yang Qingji's identity and status, he didn't need to covet the Cloud Ascending Crane's reward. Now that she heard from the shopkeeper, she realized Yang Qingji also had his own difficulties. Although Yang Qingji was Guifang Devil Monarch's most favored disciple, he was ranked last. There were several senior martial brothers and sisters above him. 2 of them were already in the peak stage of the core formation realm and were about to advance into the nascent soul realm. Ever since Guifang Devil Monarch took him in, he doted on him very much. Not only did he personally teach him, but he also gave him many treasures that others couldn't see. This naturally made the other disciples envious. Although Yang Qingji advanced quickly, he was still young, and unlike his senior martial brothers and sisters, he didn't have his own confidants. Because of this, he suffered a lot in private. But Guifang Devil Monarch wouldn't stand up for him in these matters. Although he doted on him, if he couldn't even solve this small matter, then the disciple he doted on would be too useless. Now that Guifang Devil Monarch was old, although he didn't show any signs of dying, many of his disciples were unwilling to be left out. Many of them were eager to make trouble and made connections everywhere, hoping to inherit their master's position. However, since Guifang City was one of the 3 devil domains in Yunzhong, how could it be so easy to obtain the position of city lord? In the end, Guifang Devil Monarch was annoyed. He announced to the whole city that when he abdicated, among his disciples, the one with the highest cultivation level would inherit the position of city lord. The prerequisite for this was that the disciple must advance into the nascent soul realm. If no one advanced into the nascent soul realm, foreign cultivators could seize the position of city lord with their own strength. After Guifang Devil Monarch announced this order, his disciples finally calmed down and began to cultivate with all their might. Among them, his 2 oldest disciples naturally had the most advantage. They were already in the peak stage of the core formation realm, and the nascent soul realm was just a threshold. However, Yang Qingji's talent was extremely high. While his senior martial brothers and sisters cultivated with all their might, they didn't forget to drag him down. Although Yang Qingji's aptitude was excellent, he wasn't good at power struggles, so he had to deliberately avoid it and travel around Guifang City. Hearing this, Mo Tiange wasn't too surprised. Where there was influence, there would be power struggles. Even Xianqing School, which was currently in a period of harmony, couldn't completely avoid it, let alone Guifang City, where the city lord could order the whole city's people. What she was curious about was why this innkeeper, whose cultivation level was only in the aura refining realm, was so clear about these things. Upon hearing her question, the innkeeper smiled and said, "Senior, you don't know, but in our Guifang City, these are all open secrets. Not many people don't know about them." He then said with some worry, "In fact, we're all very worried. If the city lord really passes away, I'm afraid the good days of our Guifang City will also come to an end." "Why?" Mo Tiange smiled and said, "The establishment of Guifang City isn't a matter of a day or 2. How can it be so easy to fall?" The innkeeper said, "Senior is a Dao cultivator, so you might not be very clear about the matters of us devil cultivators. We devil cultivators worship individual strength the most, so we don't have any sects, we only have cities. Moreover, in a city there's usually only one nascent soul cultivator who is the city lord. The city lord's words are the devil territory's iron law. Our Guifang City was established by relying on the prestige of city lord Guifang Devil Monarch. If the city lord passes away and the successor doesn't have enough strength, we'll change from one of the 3 great devil territories to a small devil territory that can be bullied by anyone." "Oh, so it's like this." She seemed to have heard this before. Even if the scale of the devil path was slightly smaller than that of the righteous path, how could there only be so few nascent soul cultivators among the 3 great and 7 small devil territories in northern Qilin country? It was probably because after devil cultivators advanced to the nascent soul realm, they would either establish their own city and enjoy the glory of being admired by thousands of people, or they would have no interest in it and wholeheartedly seek more powerful strength. In this way, the strength of a city's deterrence completely depended on the strength of the city lord. If the city lord's strength wasn't enough, he could only submit to others. In this case, once Guifang Devil Monarch passed away, whoever succeeded as the city lord would affect the future of Guifang City. If this person's strength wasn't enough, Guifang City would quickly decline from being one of the 3 great devil territories and might even be robbed by other nascent soul cultivators. Thinking about it this way, Guifang Devil Monarch's order was indeed extremely wise. If one of his disciples advanced to the nascent soul realm, he could naturally take over Guifang City. But if no one had this ability, Guifang City was such a big piece of fat meat that it would definitely attract other powerful nascent soul cultivators. At that time, even if his disciples weren't complacent, Guifang City would still be saved. Mo Tiange felt that this Guifang Devil Monarch wasn't only strong, but his brain was also first-rate. Compared to City Lord Mei of Starfall City, he was many times stronger. No wonder he could establish such a powerful devil territory. Thinking of City Lord Mei, she couldn't help but ask, "Shopkeeper, are there any other devil territories near Guifang City?" While leading the way, the shopkeeper answered, "Yes, the one closest to us should be Starfall City. But it's only a small devil territory, so it's not a big deal." The shopkeeper's expression was exactly as he said, it was not a big deal. He looked like he didn't care about Starfall City at all. It seemed that the strength of Guifang City also made the cultivators in Guifang City have a very high standard. No matter what, Starfall City still had nascent soul cultivators and many core formation cultivators. But in the end, in the eyes of this shopkeeper who was only in the aura refining realm, he only said one sentence, it was not a big deal. "Senior, are you interested in Starfall City?" The shopkeeper continued, "This Starfall City fell 5 years ago. Within a day, the city lord's mansion was completely slaughtered by the people of Night Owl City. Now there are only a few core formation cultivators in charge, so there's really nothing to see." Mo Chinga's interest was piqued. Why did the people of Night Owl City want to slaughter the cultivators of Starfall City? I remember that Night Owl City is also one of the 3 big devil territories, and Starfall City is only a small city, it's not worth fighting over, right? The shopkeeper said, "There have been many ups and downs in the past few years, so I don't know what exactly happened. However, Junior heard that the city lord of Starfall City practiced some kind of evil technique and actually tricked more than 10 core formation cultivators into sacrificing their souls together. One of the cultivators was from Night Owl City. After the matter was exposed, the city lord of Night Owl City was furious and slaughtered everyone in Starfall City." "Is that so?" Mo Chinga muttered to herself. As an insider, she naturally knew the truth the best. According to what the shopkeeper said, among the core formation cultivators who were tricked, there were people from Night Owl City, so Starfall City was in big trouble. The shopkeeper continued, "Junior heard that back then, no one escaped from the city lord's mansion in Descending Star City. All the core formation cultivators died. Only the city lord, who was already in the nascent soul realm and was no longer in the city, escaped this disaster." Chapter 420. The cave rented by Immortal and Devil Abode was indeed as the shopkeeper said, it was of excellent quality and had a quiet environment. Mo Chinga felt it wasn't bad, so she randomly picked one and settled down. Then she told the shopkeeper that the 2 of them were going to meditate and recuperate, so he didn't need to disturb them before the end of the term. The shopkeeper repeatedly said yes, indicating that the people of the inn would absolutely not disturb them. If the 2 seniors had any instructions, they could go to the inn to find them or send them a voice transmission. Mo Chinga was very satisfied, so she rewarded the shopkeeper with some spirit stones and sent him away. Then she laid restrictions around the cave, indicating that she didn't want to be disturbed. She closed the cave and temporarily isolated it from the world. This cave was very big. It was fully equipped with cultivation rooms, concocting rooms, and spiritual beast rooms. There were also many cultivation rooms. Mo Chinga straightforwardly threw Nye Wuxiang into one of the cultivation rooms to fend for herself while she randomly picked another one. She then laid the devil aura isolating formation left by the shopkeeper and entered the virtual sky world. Since Nye Wuxiang could survive for 5 years, most of the primordial devil aura had been tamed by her, so she didn't need to worry at all. She spent a lot of effort to rent and cave in Guifang City just because it was difficult to explain the virtual sky world. Besides, the spiritual aura in the virtual sky world conflicted with primordial devil aura, so it wasn't as suitable for Nye Wuxiang as Guifang City. In addition, the news she heard from the innkeeper made Mo Chinga a little worried. She wasn't too surprised that City Lord Mei was still alive. After all, she was a nascent soul cultivator. Even if she couldn't defeat her, she could always run away. With the omnipotent abilities of nascent soul cultivators, she could hide somewhere and wouldn't be found even if she wanted to. Although City Lord Mei wasn't a threat to them now, Nye Wuxiang swallowed the primordial devil aura he worked hard to cultivate, and she ran away with Nye Wuxiang, causing City Lord Mei to fall short of success. She turned from a city lord into a stray dog. This hatred could be said to be irreconcilable. Having a nascent soul cultivator as an enemy was really not a good thing. However, it was useless to worry now, so Mo Chinga just thought about it and put it aside. As for the internal grievances in Guifang City, she didn't care. She and Yang Qingji were just acquaintances. Moreover, after so many years, she wasn't in the mood to meddle. This matter reminded her of Ling Yunhe. When she had parted ways with Ling Yunhe, they had agreed to meet after 3 months to collect the reward. Who would have thought that the 2 of them would fall into City Lord Mei's trap the moment they left the Carefree Valley? However, with Ling Yunhe's character, he wouldn't go to refuse to pay her, right? Ling Ling Yunha and Ling Yunha didn't want to refuse to pay, right? Emo Chinga couldn't help but laugh. Ling Ling clan devil clan's devil. She mountains she said Emo and Rance mountains mountain. They were injured. After cultivating they and seemed to have, and then began to looking ding. They may say. And seemed. They weren't injured in the first place. After this period of cultivation, they seemed to be showing signs of advancing, so they began to look for suitable spiritual herbs to eat again. In terms of spiritual beast cultivation speed, the three of them were already too fast. However, spiritual beasts' realm breakthroughs weren't as troublesome as human cultivators, so Emo Chinga just let them be. In any case, they wouldn't be faster than her in the end. Several months later, while Emo Chinga was adjusting her breath, she suddenly felt something was wrong. Emo Chinga stopped recuperating and opened her eyes. After thinking for a while, she hurriedly left the virtual sky world. As soon as she came out of the virtual sky world, she immediately felt a strong and vast devil aura. As soon as she appeared, the devil aura ignored the devil aura isolation formation and rushed towards her violently. Emo Chinga was startled. She unleashed the art of primordial origin to protect herself before stepping out of her cultivation room. On the way to Nie Wuxiang's cultivation room, the devil aura became denser and denser. Although it couldn't compare to those nascent soul devil cultivators, it wasn't too far off. In fact, the devil aura here was even slightly purer. By the time Emo Chinga stepped into Nie Wuxiang's cultivation room, she was completely shocked. At that moment, Nie Wuxiang was sitting cross-legged on the stone bed, adjusting her breath with her eyes closed. Her whole body was surrounded by thick devil aura. This devil aura seemed to have a life of its own as it circled around her, neither too fast nor too slow. The momentum coming from her body was already far beyond the middle stage of the core formation realm. It was even much higher than the late stage of the core formation realm. She was only one step away from the nascent soul realm. Could it be that Nie Wuxiang made a realm breakthrough? Emo Chinga watched for a while, but in the end she shook her head. No, this wasn't a realm breakthrough. It was the devil aura that was too overbearing, so it had such a strong momentum. That monster was originally prepared by City Lord Mei for her. With his identity as a nascent soul cultivator, it was absolutely no small matter that this primordial devil aura could help him make a realm breakthrough. Although the part Nie Wuxiang swallowed wasn't all of it, it still surpassed her own realm. With so much primordial devil aura, it wasn't surprising that she had such a strong momentum all of a sudden. However, Emo Chinga couldn't help but recall Master Song Feng's eccentric and ruthless temperament, as well as his appearance that was neither human nor ghost. Now that Nie Wuxiang really embarked on such a path, would she also become like him? Just as she was thinking about this, Nie Wuxiang suddenly opened her eyes and smiled at her. This smile made Emo Chinga's taut heartstrings loosen in an instant. From the looks of it, she seemed to be the same as before. There was nothing wrong with her. So you're awake. How do you feel? Nie Wuxiang stretched herself, and the devil aura around her body suddenly danced along with her movements. I'm so tired. How long did I sleep? 5 years. Seeing that Nie Wuxiang's movements were normal, Emo Chinga knew there was nothing wrong with her, so she felt relieved. So it's been 5 years. Nie Wuxiang seemed to be sighing with emotion. After a while she finally smiled and said, I'm fine. Although I can't completely absorb this devil aura, I've already tamed it. Now I just need to slowly absorb it all. That's good. Now that she was sure Nie Wuxiang was fine, Emo Chinga no longer worried about her. She carefully looked at Nie Wuxiang in front of her and couldn't help but say, looking at your current appearance, you already look like a complete devil cultivator. I wonder if this primordial devil aura has any disadvantages? Will you end up like your master in the future? This question made Nie Wuxiang dazed for a while. After a long time, she lowered her head to look at her hand. On her hand, there used to be a wound corroded by the black water in Carefree Valley. After being cleansed by the primordial devil aura for 5 years, this wound was long gone. The remaining corrosive power was also completely devoured by the primordial devil aura. This primordial devil aura was indeed the most overbearing aura in this world. Neither the dead aura nor the filthy aura could compare to it. I also don't know. Nie Wuxiang looked indifferent as she said calmly, I wasn't a real devil cultivator before. It was just that the spiritual aura and devil aura inside my body were mixed, so I was neither a Dao nor a devil. At present, this primordial devil aura seems to be quite obedient and shows no signs of corroding my body, but it's hard to say how my cultivation level will improve in the future. She hesitated for a moment, then continued to say, The reason why my master became like this is because he practiced the primordial devil great art too early. When he was in the foundation building realm, he suffered chi deviation because he was greedy for more. Now that I'm in the core formation realm, my meridians and dantian were tough enough, so they weren't corroded after being attacked by this primordial devil aura. Logically speaking, I should be better off than him. Although that was the case, she wasn't sure whether she would become like that or not. After all, there were too few people who practiced this so-called primordial devil great art, so she basically didn't have any examples to compare herself with. Ever since she came to Yunzhong, she didn't have a single friend. Coincidentally, she met Nie Wuxiang at this time. During this period of time, the two of them experienced so many things together that she already regarded Nie Wuxiang as a friend, so she couldn't help but feel sad for her. Before this, she had just decided to become a real cultivator, but because of this reason she had no choice but to absorb primordial devil aura and become a devil cultivator. Now, she had to face the possibility of becoming an inhuman monster in the future. Mo Qianga had always felt that although her life could be considered smooth, her life before she was 20 years old was full of difficulties and bumps. It wasn't until now that she realized how lucky she was. Like Nie Wuxiang, she lost her mother when she was born, grew up under her master's hatred and torture, and finally escaped. She wanted to live her own life, but she was forced to accept this kind of future. In the more than 100 years she lived, she suffered a lot. Fate was really unfair to her. You don't have to look at me like that. Nie Wuxiang smiled. This is an unknown in the end. Maybe I'll really become a top cultivator in one fell swoop with the help of primordial devil aura and move unhindered in the world? At that time, I don't know how many people will envy me. In the end, Mo Qianga didn't show any sympathy. Someone with a firm character like Nie Wuxiang didn't need sympathy. Do you know about the primordial devil great art? Nie Wuxiang didn't hesitate. Before I left, I stole a lot of master's treasures, including the primordial devil great art he comprehended. However, it's hard to say whether this primordial devil great art has any mistakes or omissions. In any case, the primordial devil aura in my body is enough for me to absorb for many years. I think I'll slowly tame this primordial devil aura first, then see if I can practice the primordial devil great art. I really don't want to become like Master, who has a bad temper and is neither human nor ghost. Mo Qianga nodded silently. In this kind of situation, this was already the best way. Let's not talk about this. Nie Wuxiang put away her slight melancholy, looked around and asked curiously, "Where are we? Where are those people? Although I put my life in your hands, I didn't expect you could really escape. It really surprised me." A smile also appeared on Mo Qianga's face. Back then we were only able to escape because of luck. She recounted everything that happened that year in detail, but she changed escaping into the virtual sky world to hiding in the bewildering trace fog. In the end, City Lord Mei didn't find them. As for the others, I also don't know. Later, I came to Guifang City, rented this immortal's cave, and never left it. But I heard that the City Lord's mansion in Descending Star City was slaughtered by Night Owl City in one night. City Lord Mei has long left the city and escaped the disaster. Night Owl City? Nie Wuxiang thought for a moment, then said, "So, there were also cultivators from Night Owl City who were tricked into the trap with us that day?" That should be the case. The two of them talked about some things. After Nie Wuxiang finished understanding the current situation, she thought for a moment, then asked, "You're injured. Do you want to stay here until you recover?" Of course. Mo Qianga didn't hesitate. Yunzhong is full of dangerous places. If I'm injured, it'll be really inconvenient. And? Nie Wuxiang expressed her agreement and stretched her body again. "Alright, my body is still not used to the current situation, so I'll stay here with you for a few more days. Alas, my body is stiff. For us martial cultivators, not moving for 5 years is really not a good thing. I'll go exercise." She got up, got off the bed and was about to leave the cave. In the next moment, Mo Qianga suddenly felt an extremely strong momentum attack her, and then a loud noise came from the entrance of the cave. She turned to look at the entrance and was instantly dumbfounded. Nie Wuxiang was frozen there with a shocked expression. Her right hand was still in the position of pushing the door, and the restriction and stone door set at the entrance of the cave were completely broken. Chapter 421. Mo Qianga was in a daze for a long time before she regained her composure. She rushed over and saw that the stone door had been smashed into powder, and the restriction at the door was also broken. The stone door was fine. Even a foundation building cultivator could break it, but this restriction was personally laid by her. Although it wasn't a top-grade formation, it couldn't be broken by ordinary core formation cultivators. She looked at Nie Wuxiang in disbelief. What did you do just now? Nie Wuxiang, who was still absent-minded, murmured, I just pushed it. After she said that, she finally realized something. She looked down at her hand and saw nothing unusual except for the primordial devil aura on it. No matter what, Nie Wuxiang was still in the middle stage of the core formation realm, so the primordial devil aura in her body could only cause this. Mo Chenga shook her head with a bitter smile. This is good. Even if you run into a nascent soul cultivator, you won't be trampled on. Although this kind of movement couldn't compare to the strength of a nascent soul cultivator, it already had a momentum that could rival it. However, being too powerful wasn't necessarily a good thing. Powerful strength needed an equally powerful container to contain it, and this container was a cultivator's body, meridians, and dantian. Although Nie Wuxiang had this kind of strength now, she was still in the middle stage of the core formation realm, which definitely wasn't a good thing. If she used it forcibly, she might explode and die. How could Nie Wuxiang not understand this? She was stunned for a long time before she said, It's too late to regret now. We can only do as we see fit. As she said that, she looked down at her hand and waved it lightly. With a loud bang, a boulder at the entrance of the cave was smashed into pieces. Nie Wuxiang was a bit dispirited by this scene. How could she move around with such a big movement? Would she really change from a martial cultivator to a devil cultivator in the future? Mo Chenga asked, How's your body? I haven't used the primordial devil aura much, so I can't feel anything. She then lowered her head and sighed. It seems I'll have to stay here for a long time. What? Although I have the powerful primordial devil aura, I don't have a high enough realm. I must enter closed-door meditation to stabilize my realm. Nie Wuxiang smiled bitterly. Maybe 3 to 5 years or maybe 10 to 20 years. If I'm unlucky, it's not impossible for me to enter closed-door meditation for 100 years. Mo Chenga agreed. With how strong your primordial devil aura is now, it'd be best if you advance to the nascent soul realm. That way you'll be able to absorb all of it. Although she hadn't advanced to the nascent soul realm yet, she had 2 nascent soul cultivators by her side, so she understood nascent soul very well. The primordial devil aura in Nie Wuxiang's body was comparable to a nascent soul cultivator's, but because her realm was limited, she couldn't fully display it. Moreover, if she forcibly used it, it would even cause harm to her body. Given the current situation, she would only be able to resolve this crisis if her meridians and dantian completely absorbed it. Nie Wuxiang nodded, then sighed and said, I also think so. Although I was forced to walk on the path of devil cultivators, I still want to live well and continue cultivating. Whether she was a righteous or a devil wasn't important. In today's world, no one had ever ascended for more than 100,000 years. Even if Nie Wuxiang became a devil cultivator, she didn't need to think too much about it. It wouldn't be too late to consider it when she really had the chance to ascend one day. The two of them discussed it and decided to stay here for some time. Nie Wuxiang decided to subdue all the primordial devil aura first. It was very inconvenient for her to walk outside in her current state. If she couldn't control herself well when she fought, she might hurt herself. As for Mo Chenga, she didn't plan to leave before her injuries were healed. Ever since she came to Yunzhong, things happened one after another, so she didn't have much time to cultivate. After her injuries were healed, she would spend some time recuperating and stabilizing her cultivation level. Then she would go see Ling Yunhe and settle the matter regarding the art of Sunu. At that time she would consider returning to the Celestial Pole. It had been 7 years since she left the Celestial Pole. If she spent some more time recuperating, she reckoned more than 10 years would have passed. It was really inconvenient to travel outside, especially in such a distant place. Things were different now. There was a blood oath between her and Qin Shi. 5 years ago she was seriously injured, so presumably Qin Shi could also feel it. However, he couldn't come for the time being, so she didn't know how to worry about him. Mo Chenga only briefly told Nie Wuxiang about her plans, but Nie Wuxiang naturally wouldn't say anything. Although the two of them had a good relationship now, it wasn't to the point where they were inseparable. Both of them were very independent cultivators with their own plans. Right now they just happened to have the same goal. As for Nie Wuxiang, not to mention the fact that she was currently plagued by primordial devil aura and couldn't come out of her closed-door meditation in a short time, even if she could, she absolutely wouldn't go back to the Celestial Pole. She spent so much effort to escape from the Celestial Pole and almost died in the South Sea. Unless she became a top late-stage nascent soul cultivator one day, she wouldn't take the risk to go back. If Master Song Feng was still alive, her fate could be imagined. After a short conversation, the two of them continued to live in this cave without disturbing each other. They both did their own closed-door meditation and recuperated their own injuries. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, another 5 years had passed. During these 5 years, the two of them had almost no contact with each other. It was only when the rent of the cave expired and the shopkeeper came to collect the rent that they both left the cultivation room. The shopkeeper probably already knew about the cave's stone door being broken. It was just that there were 2 core formation cultivators living here, so it wasn't convenient for him to say anything. When Ye Wuxiang came to collect the rent, the shopkeeper wasn't surprised at all and only asked if it needed to be repaired. Ye Wuxiang directly gave him a pile of spirit stones as compensation and also paid him 10 years of rent. How could the shopkeeper not feel unhappy? He hurriedly ordered people to come over and repair the stone door. In the next 2 years he didn't come to disturb them as usual. Mo Qingge and Ye Wuxiang were very satisfied that the shopkeeper was so sensible. For them, having a quiet place to stay was the most important thing. 5 years later, Mo Qingge stopped cultivating and came out of the virtual sky world. Sensing her breath, the stone door of Ye Wuxiang's cultivation room opened automatically. After not seeing Mo Qingge for 2 years, Ye Wuxiang looked at Mo Qingge carefully. She was both amazed and curious. "You're recuperating? 2 years ago I saw your injuries had just healed. How did your cultivation progress so fast?" It wasn't strange for Ye Wuxiang to be surprised. After she woke up, Mo Qingge's injuries hadn't completely healed. It was only after 3 years that her injuries were completely healed. But now, in just 2 years, she was already halfway to the middle stage of the core formation realm. This kind of cultivation speed was really too exaggerated. Mo Qingge simply answered, "In these 10 years I wasn't recuperating." When her injuries weren't too serious, she began to take a lot of medicinal pills to improve her cultivation level. The reason she did this was because she was ready to come out of closed-door meditation. The stronger she was, the smoother her next business would be. There weren't many things left to do. The first thing was to see Ling Yunhe and settle the matter regarding the art of Sunu, then return to the Celestial Pole. In addition, if possible, she also planned to go to Danxia sect to inquire about some things related to Mo Yaoqing. Mo Yaoqing had passed away for more than 5,000 years. The grievances between her and Danxia sect had long been settled the moment she left Yunzhong. That being the case, Mo Qingge naturally wouldn't get entangled in this matter. The grievances of her ancestors weren't something a junior several thousand years later like her could meddle in. Besides, after so many years, Danxia sect's disciples had changed several generations, so she really didn't need to take it seriously. After Mo Qingge said that, Ye Wuxiang stared at her thoughtfully. After a while she said, "You're leaving?" She came out of closed-door meditation to say goodbye to Ye Wuxiang. It had been more than 10 years since she left the Celestial Pole. It was time to go back. Ye Wuxiang didn't feel surprised, but she still felt a vague sense of loss. She sighed and said, "You're right. You're different from me. No matter how far you go, you still have to go back." Mo Qingge heard the melancholy in her voice, but she couldn't comfort her about this kind of thing. Although her character was compatible with Ye Wuxiang's, their life trajectories were completely different. In the Celestial Pole, she had a master, a partner, and relatives. No matter how far she was, she still had to go back. That was her route. But Ye Wuxiang was the opposite. She absolutely couldn't go back to the Celestial Pole. In Yunzhong, she had no relatives or friends. She was like a floating duckweed. The only thing that kept her going was her determination to keep cultivating. Cultivators were also people. They were more indifferent to worldly emotions than mortals, but they couldn't completely abandon them. "Maybe I'll come to Yunzhong again in a few years. At that time we'll still have a chance to see each other." After a long time, Mo Qingge only said this. Ye Wuxiang smiled, threw her sad mood to the back of her mind and asked, "What's your next plan?" "I'll go to Ling Yunhe to get the reward first. If things go smoothly, I'll go back to the Celestial Pole." Mo Qingge didn't have anything to hide, so she told her frankly. "Right, I forgot that Ling Yunhe still owes us a debt." Ye Wuxiang smiled then sighed softly. "Unfortunately, I can't use the reward he promised me now." Mo Qingge never asked about this matter, so she couldn't help but feel curious. "Back then, when you accepted Ling Yunhe's invitation, what reward did you ask for?" "A sacred exorcism object." Ye Wuxiang didn't hesitate and told her directly. She then shook her head and smiled bitterly. "At that time when I made this request, Ling Yunhe was very embarrassed. If he wasn't pressed for time and urgently needed help, I'm afraid he wouldn't have given it to me. But it's useless to me now even if I have it. She was already a devil cultivator now, and the primordial devil aura in her body directly occupied her meridians and dantian. It was simply impossible to use a devil exorcism object to remove the devil aura from her body. If she persisted, her cultivation level would most likely be crippled. So you're not going to go? I reckon I'll have to enter closed-door meditation for at least 10 years. Nie Wuxiang thought for a while then said, how about this? If you see Ling Yunhe, tell him for me that the thing he promised me is already dispensable to me. If this thing is very important to him, then he can use something else to replace it. I don't expect it to be more precious than this sacred object. It's fine as long as he doesn't renege on his debt. If I come out of closed-door meditation, I'll go look for him. All right, Mo Chenga readily agreed. It was just a message, so it wasn't a big deal. Nie Wuxiang looked at her with a complicated expression for a long time before she finally said, I hope we're fated to meet again. After a long time, Mo Chenga smiled. Rest assured. If I form my nascent soul in the future, I'll definitely come to Yunzhong to look for you. Chapter 422. The restaurant in Guifang City was no different from the restaurants in the Righteous Path's Immortal Cultivation City. It was also a bustling crowd of low-level cultivators, all of whom were chatting and laughing loudly, exchanging information. For most of the low-level cultivators, they couldn't enter the mountain gate, couldn't get in touch with those high-level cultivators, and couldn't get pointers. Therefore, they valued the communication between cultivators more. They could get other cultivation information from cultivators of the same level and exchange what they needed. A immortal cultivation city needed the strength of high-level cultivators, but it also needed these low-level cultivators to be popular. Only then could it prosper. Very welcome. Please take a seat here. In the restaurant, the waiter who specialized in receiving cultivators warmly greeted a female cultivator who just stepped into the restaurant and led her to a seat. Although this waiter was a mortal, he had been in the outside world for a long time, so he had a good eye. When he saw this female cultivator's appearance, he knew she was a cultivator of the righteous path. He asked eagerly, Fairy, what do you want? We have good spiritual tea, spiritual wine brewed from spiritual fruits, and dishes cooked from spiritual beasts. A pot of tea and a few plates of dried fruits will do. The female cultivator replied lightly. Yes, yes, please wait a moment. The waiter bowed repeatedly. After a while he served the spiritual tea and dried fruits. Fairy, please enjoy. If you need anything, just call me. The female cultivator nodded, picked up the spiritual tea and took a sip. However, she frowned slightly as if she was not satisfied with this spiritual tea. In the infernal domain, how could a restaurant that served ordinary low-level cultivators have any good spirit tea? This restaurant was actually quite famous in Guifang City. However, in the early morning, the seats on the second floor, which was specially used to receive cultivators, were already 70% full. Seeing this female cultivator come in, the other cultivators more or less shifted their gaze to her for a while. They acted like this because there were not many female cultivators among the rogue cultivators. Moreover, this was the devil domain and this female cultivator was a Dao cultivator. Secondly, this female cultivator's aura was not strong, but they couldn't feel her real cultivation. It was really strange. However, no matter how they looked, this female cultivator was still quietly drinking tea by herself. She lowered her head and looked at the table as if she didn't care about the surroundings. Seeing this, the surrounding cultivators quickly resumed their conversation. Although there weren't many low-level cultivators in the demon domain, it wasn't as if there weren't any. In this restaurant alone, there were 3 to 5 of them, which wasn't considered rare. Besides, low-level cultivators like them were busy cultivating every day. How could they have the time to care about other people's business? This female cultivator was naturally Mo Chenga. After a simple farewell to Nie Wuxiang, she packed up her things and left the temporary cave. She had not appeared in the human world for several years. Looking at the bustling Guifang city, she could not help but want to sit in the crowd and feel the aura of the mortal world. Cultivation was a lonely thing. The higher one's cultivation, the more lonely it was. He shut himself in the abode and cultivated day and night, painstakingly comprehending the profundities. In the blink of an eye, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years passed just like that. If one didn't have a firm Tao heart, how could one persevere? Even if Mo Chenga admitted she was willing to be lonely, it was inevitable that she would feel dull and lonely after being in closed-door meditation for a long time. After sitting leisurely for a while, several cultivators of the righteous path came to strike up a conversation with her. However, Mo Chenga was not in the mood to chat with them today, so she only said a few words. Seeing that she was not in the mood to chat, the others sensibly didn't disturb her. The restaurant was quite noisy. 4 low-level cultivators without a sect, communicating with cultivators in the same realm was their source of information. Although they might not be prepared for what they said, Mo Chenga was very happy to hear it. While she was listening to some gossip with relish, she suddenly heard a devil cultivator at the table next to her say, "Fellow Taoists, before I came to Guifang City, I heard there were many cultivators with profound cultivation levels in Guifang City. I've been here for a month, but why haven't I seen a senior in the core formation realm?" This cultivator's question might be very strange in other places. How could it be so easy to see a core formation cultivator? But in Guifang City, it wasn't strange at all. Guifang City was one of the biggest devil territories. Not only were there many core formation cultivators under Guifang Devil Monarch, but there were also many cultivators who settled in Guifang City. Although low-level cultivators like them couldn't chat with them, they had many opportunities to meet them. There were 2 people sitting at the same table with this devil cultivator. One was a youth with a knife scar on his face, and the other was a skinny old man. Upon hearing this question, the old man still drank his tea with relish, but the other youth immediately smiled and said, "Brother Yin, there's something you don't know. If you came to Guifang City on a normal day, it would be very easy for you to see a core formation senior. But now the timing isn't right. Not to mention our Guifang City, I'm afraid the core formation seniors from other devil territories aren't in the city." "Oh." The devil cultivator called Brother Yen was surprised. What timing? Did something big happen? Something big, something really big. The knife-scarred youth shook the wine cup in his hand, ate a mouthful of dishes cooked by demonic beasts, then said, "Brother Yin, I presume you haven't been to this kind of place recently, right? Not to mention our Guifang City, there's practically no devil cultivator who doesn't know about this matter." Mo Chenga, who inadvertently overheard this, couldn't help but prick up her ears. Something big happened in the devil cultivator world? What kind of thing could it be that involved so many core formation cultivators? "Fellow Taoist Duan, don't keep me guessing. What's the matter? I'm always impatient." "Hee hee." The knife-scarred youth chuckled. Now that he had aroused devil cultivator Yan's curiosity, he said, "Brother Yin, have you ever heard of a magic weapon called Heavenly Devil Tower?" "Heavenly Devil Tower? What's that?" Judging from his tone, it seems to be an extraordinary magic weapon. Mo Chenga, who didn't know much about Yunzhong, was full of doubts. "Heavenly Devil Tower?" Devil cultivator Yen repeated. At first, his expression was blank, but it soon turned red, and excitement appeared on his face. Heavenly Devil Tower. Tens of thousands of years ago, the most powerful magic weapon of devil paths, Heavenly Devil Venerable, the Heavenly Devil Tower. Correct. The knife-scarred youth was very satisfied that devil cultivator Yen managed to guess it right away. Aside from this Heavenly Devil Tower, what else could make those arrogant seniors care so much about it? The youth didn't finish his sentence, so devil cultivator Yen hastily asked, "What's going on? Fellow Taoist Duan, just tell me." "Let this old man tell you." The old man who hadn't spoken until now finally spoke. His cultivation level was slightly higher than the other 2. He was already in the 10th layer of the aura refining realm. Judging from his age, he must have had a lot of experience. His eyes shone brightly, and it was obvious he was a shrewd person. "We have to start from 2 years ago," the old man said slowly. "About 2 years ago, not only in our Guifang City, but in the entire devil cultivator world, the rumor of the Heavenly Devil Tower's reappearance spread. Fellow Taoist Yen, you know what kind of treasure the Heavenly Devil Tower is. We devil cultivators worship powerful cultivators the most, and Devil Path's Heavenly Devil Venerable was undoubtedly the most powerful devil cultivator in Yunzhong's history. The Heavenly Devil Tower in his hands was created by gathering the power of the 10 most powerful devil monarchs of the Devil Path and refining all kinds of Devil Path supreme treasures. It could be said to be the #1 magic weapon of our Devil Path, so it's also known as the Devil Path's sacred object." The old man roughly explained the origin of the Heavenly Devil Tower, which happened to resolve Mo Chenga's doubts. She had heard of Devil Venerable Sky, but she wasn't very interested in matters related to devil cultivators. She only knew that this person was publicly recognized as the strongest devil path cultivator in Yunzhong. Although he had disappeared for several tens of thousands of years, his prestige still lingered in Yunzhong. Moreover, he was the only Devil Path cultivator who was given the title of Devil Venerable. Judging from the old man's words, this heavenly Devil Tower was the most powerful magic weapon in Devil Venerable Sky's hands, and it was also known as the Devil Path's sacred object, so it should be very extraordinary. However, this Devil Venerable Sky had disappeared for several tens of thousands of years. Was this magic weapon still in good condition? As this thought crossed her mind, Mo Qinga once again recalled the Fuxing sword she accidentally obtained a few years ago. Fu Yaozi was also a cultivator from several tens of thousands of years ago. This magic weapon of his had been corroded in the devil domain for several tens of thousands of years, but it still had that kind of power. If this heavenly devil tower had been properly preserved in a specific place, it really might be in good condition. All of us aura refining cultivators heard about this, so we all thought it was just groundless rumors. Otherwise, how could we possibly know about this kind of news? Who knew that several months ago the high-level seniors of our Guifang city went out one after another? Only then did we find out that this wasn't just a rumor. Right now, almost all the seniors in the devil cultivation world above the core formation realm are searching for this sacred object. Oh, so that's how it is. The devil cultivator surnamed Yen clicked his tongue in wonder. Legend has it that after the devil venerable successfully advanced to the divine transformation realm, he disappeared from the world, and the heavenly devil tower also disappeared at the same time. It's been several tens of thousands of years, but this devil path sacred object has actually reappeared in the world? This is too miraculous. Who said it wasn't? The knife-scarred youth said while eating a dried fruit. Unfortunately, our cultivation levels are too low. Even if the sacred object appears in the world, it has nothing to do with us. Alas, if it was several hundred years later. Even if it was several hundred years later, you still might not be able to form your gold core. Even if you formed your gold core, I'm afraid you still wouldn't be able to snatch this sacred object. The old man slowly nibbled on peanuts and said, "This time, although all the core formation seniors went out, in my opinion, only the 3 great devil monarchs will be able to join in the fight." The knife-scarred youth nodded in agreement. Yes. Not to mention the core formation seniors, even those nascent soul seniors with slightly weaker strength probably won't have a chance. The sacred object of our devil path will naturally fall into the hands of the strongest devil cultivators. Other people will just watch the fun. Correct. I hope our city lord can snatch the sacred object. That way, our Guifang city will become the #1 devil domain in the future. At that time, small cultivators like us will also have a lot of benefits. These devil cultivators continued to talk for a while before they changed the topic to something else. The appearance of the devil path's sacred object was naturally an extraordinary event for the entire devil cultivation world, but for small cultivators like them, it was nothing more than gossip. Mo Chenga muttered to herself for a while before she called the waiter, paid the bill and left the restaurant. On the surface, this matter seemed to have nothing to do with her. However, if she thought about it carefully, it might not necessarily be the case. The appearance of the devil path's sacred object caused turmoil in the entire devil cultivation world. In Yunzhong, although cultivators from different realms had their own countries, they all lived together. Once the devil path was in turmoil, the 3 realms of Taoism, Confucianism, and Buddhism would also be in turmoil. It seemed she had to quickly finish her business and leave Yunzhong. Chapter 423. After leaving Guifang City and Northern Lin Country in a hurry, Mo Chenga entered the sphere of influence of Juyin sect a few days later. The northern part of eastern Tang, because it was close to Northern Lin Country, had barren mountains and wild rivers and was very desolate. Not even a few villages could be seen. When she got close to Juyin sect, there were more people. After entering Juyin sect's sphere of influence, there were even more towns and cities everywhere. Among the 5 major sects of eastern Tang, Juyin sect and Danxia sect were located in the north, one in the east and the other in the west. Because of the existence of these 2 sects, the surrounding area was very prosperous. Cultivation cities were everywhere, and it was many times more prosperous than the celestial pole. Along the way, Mo Chenga randomly picked a cultivation town to stay, but she found that the turmoil of Devil Path had already affected all parts of Yunzhong. Once a powerful devil cultivator obtained the sacred object of Devil Path, his strength would soar. Although the cultivators of Yunzhong coexisted peacefully, they were also in a delicate balance. If the strength of Devil Path cultivators skyrocketed, especially figures like the 3 devil monarchs, the situation in Yunzhong would certainly change. Therefore, when the sacred object of Devil Path appeared, not only did it set off a great uproar in the world of Devil Path, but other Taoist cultivators, Confucian cultivators and Buddhist cultivators were also involved. When she returned to Eastern Tang at this time, there were almost no high-level cultivators left in the 5 major cultivation sections. Basically all of them went out in full force. The disturbance caused by this matter in Eastern Tang was far greater than that in Guifang City. This was the sacred object of Devil Path. Devil cultivators went to fight for it for their own interests, but Taoist cultivators felt a sense of crisis. Taoist cultivators were used to them being the most numerous and powerful cultivators in Yunzhong. This time, it was possible for devil cultivators to get the sacred object of Devil Venerable. How could this be? Although Devil Venerable was powerful and had outstanding figures like the 10 Devil Monarchs, Taoist cultivators also had geniuses like Senior Fu Yaozi and other promising cultivators. The strength of Taoist cultivators was not weak at all. After so many years, although Taoist and Devil Path were no longer hostile, they were still unwilling to let devil cultivators steal the limelight and dominate Taoist cultivators. As for Buddhist cultivators and Confucian cultivators, they also belonged to the righteous path. It was not good for them if devil cultivators were strong, so they naturally stood on the side of Taoist cultivators. Mo Qingge couldn't help but sigh. She really didn't expect that the situation in Yunzhong would change in such a way in just a few years of seclusion. As a result, the things she wanted to do had changed again. A few years ago, Ling Yunhe promised to help her obtain the complete version of the art of Sunu. He said he'd only think of a way to get it for her, but he didn't say how long it would take or whether he'd directly give it to her. Moreover, regardless of whether Ling Yunhe had become the sect leader of Juyin sect or not, with almost all the sects mobilized, he would most likely be dragged into this matter as well. It was unknown whether he was in Juyin sect at the moment. After pondering for a while, Mo Qingge felt it was useless to think too much about it. She might as well go directly to the Ling clan in Sky Snow City to take a look and then decide what to do next. After making up her mind, she traveled day and night without stopping to rest. Soon she arrived at Sky Snow City. She went to the Ling clan with familiarity. Coincidentally, the person who received her was the cultivator who called Ling Yunhe's second uncle, Xiaoshan. However, after 10 years, Xiaoshan had already successfully built his foundation and became a foundation-building cultivator. "Senior, it's you." Xiaoshan opened his mouth in surprise when he saw Mo Qingge being led in by the gatekeeper. Mo Qingge swept her gaze over him and immediately found that things were different now. Xiaoshan had advanced to the foundation-building realm, so his dressing and bearing were completely different from the low-level cultivator he used to be. She smiled and said, "We haven't seen each other for many years. Turns out you've successfully built your foundation. Congratulations." Xiaoshan scratched his head embarrassedly and hastily asked Mo Qingge to sit down. "Senior, please sit. The core formation elders of the Ling clan are all busy right now. Please forgive me for not being a good host." Mo Qingge waved her hand indifferently. "I know. The appearance of the sacred object of the Devil Path has affected the whole of Yunzhong. In fact, for a big clan like the Ling clan, even if a core formation cultivator came to visit, it would be enough for a foundation-building cultivator to receive them before the reason was stated. It wouldn't be considered rude. Besides, the current situation was special. According to her estimation, the Ling clan's nascent soul ancestor was most likely chasing after the Devil Realm's sacred object. There were probably only a few core formation cultivators left in the Ling clan, and they were probably all busy and didn't have time to receive her. Seeing that Mo Qingge didn't mind, Xiaoshan sighed in relief and said apologetically, "Since Senior knows the reason, I won't explain much." The servants of the Ling clan were all well trained. At this time they had already served tea quickly. After Mo Qingge drank the tea, Xiaoshan said, "Senior, did you come to look for second uncle?" Mo Qingge put down the teacup and nodded. "Yes, but I wonder if fellow Taoist Ling is in the manor or inside Juyin sect." Xiaoshan shook his head and said apologetically, "Unfortunately, second uncle went out with the ancestor several months ago. I don't know when he'll come back." Mo Qingge was stunned for a moment before she sighed. "I guessed fellow Taoist Ling probably couldn't avoid the matter of the Devil Path's sacred object. I just came to ask with the slightest hope. Senior doesn't have to be so disappointed." Xiaoshan smiled and said, "Although second uncle isn't here, Junior has already been informed about Senior's matter." Mo Qingge was slightly happy. In that case she didn't come here in vain. "May I know what fellow Taoist Ling said?" Xiaoshan said, Second uncle said that senior has already prepared your reward. However, this matter is very important, so it's inconvenient to tell him. He asked him to personally hand it over to you when he comes back. Emo Chenga was stunned. Is that so? What she wanted was the complete art of Sunu, including cultivation techniques for those in the nascent soul realm and above. Moreover, this thing was a treasure of Danxia sect, so it wasn't wrong to be so cautious. However, the emergence of the Devil Path's sacred object this time would involve a lot of cultivators. She could imagine the chaos that would ensue. How could Ling Yunhe guarantee that he'd come back alive and fulfill his promise? If Ling Yunhe died on this trip, wouldn't that mean she wouldn't be able to get it? After hesitating for a while, Emo Chenga asked, "Can you contact him now?" Xiaoshen hesitated for a moment before answering, "Junior can't. However, second uncle also told me that if senior really wants to come and look for him during this period of time, junior can tell senior where to find second uncle." Emo Chenga was a bit surprised. Although she knew most of the core formation cultivators in Yunzhong were involved in this matter, she never thought about asking about their whereabouts because this kind of matter was definitely a secret that couldn't be passed on. But now, from what Xiaoshen said, it seemed he could tell her? Emo Chenga pondered for a moment then asked, "Isn't this matter the sect's secret? Why can you tell me?" Xiaoshen smiled and shook his head. "Senior, it's true that this matter is confidential, but how could it be confidential when almost all the high-level cultivators in Yunzhong were involved? Senior is also a core formation cultivator, so if you really want to know, you still have a way to inquire about it. That being the case, what's wrong with me telling Senior?" What he said was true. With more people involved, even the most confidential matter wouldn't be confidential anymore. Emo Chenga smiled then asked, "Then tell me, where can I find him?" Xiaoshen smiled and looked at her. He only said 3 words, "Returning Ruins Sea." Emo Chenga was startled and frowned. "Returning Ruins Sea?" "Correct." Xiaoshen took out a map made of animal skin from his robe and spread it on the tea table. This was a simple map of Yunzhong. Only the outline of Yunzhong's continent was drawn, but the internal sea was extremely detailed. Every island and every part of the sea was clearly shown. "Senior, if you want to find second uncle, you should go to this island." Emo Chenga looked at the island next to the returning ruins Sea Xiaoshen pointed at and asked, "Where is he?" Xiaoshen shook his head. "It's just that second uncle told me to do so. In Junior's opinion, Senior's chances of running into second uncle here aren't high." Emo Chenga was silent. This island was obviously a place where Juyin sect cultivators passed by. Ling Yunhe had something to do and it was a big matter that involved the whole sect, so how could he wait for her here? Besides, he also didn't know she would really come to the Ling clan at this time. Therefore, this was only a possibility. She thought for a while then asked, "What if things went smoothly? Did he say when he would come back?" Xiaoshen was silent for a while then shook his head softly with a melancholy expression. "I don't know. Since Senior already knows what happened, you must also understand that this is a great turmoil that affects the whole of Yunzhong. No one knows whether Senior can come back alive or not." Emo Chenga was silent for a while then pointed at the map on the tea table. "Can you give this to me?" Xiaoshen regained his composure and said with a smile, "Of course." He then rolled up the map and offered it with both hands. Emo Chenga accepted it then said, "Thank you for passing the message, but I haven't decided whether to go or not. How about this? If fellow Taoist Ling comes back and I haven't gone to look for him, please tell him I'll find a suitable time to visit him." Xiaoshen nodded with a smile. "I'll definitely pass on Senior's message." Emo Chenga said, "Fellow Taoist Tian can also ask me to pass on a message. Right now she has something important to do, so the time of her visit is uncertain. Maybe 3 to 5 years, maybe 10 to 20 years. When she's free she'll come to look for him." Xiaoshen nodded cautiously. "I understand." Emo Chenga hesitated for a while, but in the end she didn't tell Xiaoshen about exchanging the reward. This matter was too secretive. She'd better tell him when she saw Ling Yunhe. Even if she didn't pass on the message, Nie Wuxiang could still tell him herself. After she finished telling him about the main matter, Emo Chenga wasn't in a hurry to leave. She chatted with Xiaoshen and asked him about what happened that year. After obtaining the carefree fruit, Ling Yunhe successfully seized the position of Juyin sect's head. When he came back with injuries, Ling clan's nascent soul ancestor was furious. Afterward, Juyin sect was in turmoil. After a series of struggles, Ling Yunhe successfully succeeded the position of sect head, and this matter finally came to an end. Although Xiaoshen didn't explain this matter very clearly, Mo Chinga could guess it must have something to do with Ling Yunfei. Back then Ling Yunfei was a disciple of Ling clan, but he plotted against Ling Yunhe, so he must have something to rely on. And this reliance definitely wasn't Ling clan's ancestor. With this inference, it would be strange if Ling Yunhe didn't get angry. His own core formation descendant was actually bribed by someone else. How could he tolerate it? It could be said that Ling Yunhe's ascension to the position of sect head was a sign that one of Juyin sect's factions was losing power. Of course, this was Juyin sect's internal affairs. Mo Chinga only asked about it briefly and didn't express too much curiosity. For her, the problem now was whether she should look for Ling Yunhe and settle this matter as soon as possible or stay out of it and wait here. Chapter 424. The turmoil caused by the sacred object of the demonic path was even beyond Mo Chinga's imagination. After leaving the Ling clan, she didn't immediately go to the Sea of Returning Ruins to look for Ling Yunhe. Instead, she temporarily settled down in Sky Snow City. During this time, she saw many core formation cultivators passing through Sky Snow City and hurrying south. Some of these cultivators were in groups while some were alone. There were probably cultivators from both sects and individual cultivators. It seemed that this sacred object of the demonic path was extremely important to the cultivators in Yunzhong. Realizing this, Mo Chinga had to inquire about some information. She was puzzled. No matter how powerful this sacred object of the demonic path was, it was only a magic weapon. There was no lack of powerful cultivators in Yunzhong, so why did they all flock to this magic weapon? She didn't understand until she went to the tea house in Sky Snow City. Aura refining and foundation building cultivators couldn't intervene in such a big matter, but that didn't stop them from talking excitedly. From these people, Mo Chinga learned that there were some ancient legends circulating in Yunzhong. 100,000 years ago was the most prosperous period of the cultivation world in Yunzhong. Whether it was the righteous path or the demonic path, they all produced talented people and prospered. At that time, several legendary figures appeared among the cultivators of each path. The first was Fu Yaozi, the second was Sky Luminous Demon Venerable, the third was Juyin sect's founder Saint Gui Zhen, the fourth was Confucian Saint Zhou Fuzi, and the fifth was Buddhist Master Huiyin. These 5 figures were no more than 1,000 years apart in age and were people of the same generation. Because they were far more powerful than their peers, they were called the 5 saints by the cultivators in Yunzhong. Among the 5 saints, Fu Yaozi was the most unique one. He didn't belong to any sect, but he was so powerful that he was still called the number 1 person in Yunzhong's history. The other 4 were representatives of the demonic path, Taoist path, Confucian path, and Buddhist path. Each of them had disciples. There were also rumors about the 5 saints in Yunzhong. It was said that the 5 saints all advanced to the soul formation realm and left the world. Before they left, they each left treasures in the world. These were the 5 sacred objects in Yunzhong. Among these 5 sacred objects, Sky Luminous Demon Venerable naturally had the Heavenly Demon Tower and Master Huiyin's inescapable net. As for the other 3, people only knew they had treasures but didn't know their names. However, other than Fu Yaozi, Saint Gui Zhen, Master Zhou, and Master Huiyin all had disciples that were passed down from generation to generation. It was highly likely that they were in the hands of their disciples. As for the Sky Luminous Demon Exalted, after he passed away the 10 demon monarchs were suppressed by Fu Yaozi alone, and the Heavenly Demon Tower eventually disappeared. Because of this, after so many years, although there was no lack of nascent soul cultivators in the Devil Dao, they were all suppressed by the other Daos. Mo Chinga left the tea house and sat inside the virtual sky world, lost in thought. Inescapable net, why did it sound so familiar? After thinking for a while, an idea suddenly flashed through his mind. 10 years ago, when she first arrived at Sky Snow City, she was robbed by 2 foundation-building cultivators. At that time, she casually took their magic weapon into her pocket. That magic weapon was called the inescapable net by them. With this thought in mind, Mo Chinga put her hand into her Qingquan bag. After fumbling around for a long time, she finally took out a golden net. It was unknown what the net was made of, but it was completely golden and light as if it was weightless. It was also infused with a strange spiritual energy. After looking at it for a while, Mo Chinga couldn't see anything unusual about it. Treasures always had an imposing manner. For example, the Fuxing sword she obtained. Although it had been corroded by devil aura and was covered in rust, it was still shockingly powerful. However, she couldn't see any power from the golden net in front of her. If there was anything unusual about it, it would be that it looked extremely exquisite and the spiritual energy on it was something she still couldn't see through with her cultivation level. She carefully recalled what happened 10 years ago. One of the two people died under her hands, and the other one she found pleasing to the eye, so she let him go. That person once admitted that they were indeed Buddhist cultivators. But the problem was, they were only two foundation-building cultivators, so how could they possibly have a Buddhist holy object? A Devil Dao holy object was enough to make all of Yunzhong restless, so a Buddhist holy object should be kept in the hands of a great Buddhist cultivator. Could it be that this thing was an imitation of the real inescapable net? This wasn't impossible. Many famous psychic magic weapons had imitations in the world. For example, the square seal in her hand was actually made by Lord Taoist Jinghe based on Lord Taoist Jinyang's natal magic weapon. Therefore, although it couldn't be considered a top-grade magic weapon, it was still very powerful. After thinking for a while, Mo Chenga still couldn't think of a reason, so she shook her head and put the golden net back into her Chengkuan bag. She wasn't a cultivator from Yunzhong, so even if this matter made all the cultivators in Yunzhong crazy, she wouldn't feel excited at all. There were so many high-level cultivators, including many late-stage nascent soul cultivators with great divine power. Even if she went there, she would only be watching the fun. Besides, she didn't covet the Devil Dao's holy object. Just like that, she stayed in Sky Snow City for another month. During this time, rumors spread like wildfire in Sky Snow City. Rumors spread like wildfire in the tea houses, but no one knew whether it was true or false. Cultivators of various paths fought each other in the Sea of Returning Ruins and more than half of them died or were injured. They found a spatial crack in the Sea of Returning Ruins. They said the Heavenly Devil Tower had actually fallen into someone else's hands. The news was very messy. Mo Chenga was confused, so she simply found a time to go see Xiaoshun. Xiaoshun was very enthusiastic about her visit and told her everything he knew about the matter. From Xiaoshun, Mo Chenga heard another version of the legend. Senior, although the legend of the 5 saints has been circulating in Yunzhong for a long time, it's been several tens of thousands of years, and there are many mistakes in it. Even disciples of the 5 saints like us can't tell whether it's true or false. Hearing Xiaoshun's words, Mo Chenga said, "So what I heard should be false?" Xiaoshun hesitated for a while, then shook his head. "It's not completely false. The 5 saints themselves and the 5 holy objects they left behind should all be true. But there were others that were fake. For example, only Demon Venerable Skylight and Fu Yaozi can be confirmed to have reached the deification realm. The others, including our Jiyan sect Saint Gui Zhen, are only rumored to have reached the deification realm. As for whether they've reached the deification realm or not, we the descendants don't know." Mo Chenga was surprised. "Why is that? Saint Gui Zhen is the founder of your sect. Don't tell me there's no record of him in the sect?" Xiaoshun shook his head. "It's been too long. How could I remember it in such detail? Besides, I'm just an ordinary disciple. Although I'm favored by second uncle and know a bit more than others, there are some things that a disciple like me can't know." Mo Chenga found it reasonable, so she nodded. There were some secrets that only a few people could know. If other people's ranks weren't high enough, they wouldn't know no matter how close they were. However, there's one thing we can be sure of. The 5 saints did pass down a set of magic weapons with amazing divine powers, Xiaoshun said. Then he hesitated for a moment and said, "Senior, I can't be sure if the following things are true or false. They're just rumors I heard in the sect. If they're wrong, don't blame me." Mo Chenga smiled and said, "How can you be sure there's nothing wrong with what happened 100,000 years ago? You don't need to worry. I was the one who wanted to ask you for information, so how could I blame you?" When Xiaoshun heard this, he smiled and scratched his head in embarrassment. Although these things couldn't be regarded as the sect's secrets, he was willing to talk about them because this Senior Qin was good-natured and they got along very well. Senior must want to know why the 5 saints passed down their magic weapons together, right? Xiaoshun said. Mo Chenga nodded. "That's exactly what I don't understand. It was normal to pass down magic weapons to later generations, but why did the rumors emphasize an extremely powerful magic weapon, and called a holy object? It was indeed a bit unusual to call 5 magic weapons a holy object." Xiaoshun said, "Regarding this matter, this junior has heard of another saying in the sect." Xiaoshun then began to explain slowly. "It was said that 100,000 years ago, after a tsunami in the Sea of Returning Ruins, a spatial rift suddenly appeared. Through this spatial rift, one could enter a wonderful space. No one knew when this space had been left behind, but it was filled with the aura of the distant past and was extremely wonderful. The appearance of such a space naturally attracted the attention of cultivators. Almost all the cultivators in Yunzhong were involved in it. After a struggle, the ones who finally entered this space were the 5 top cultivators, the 5 saints. As for what the 5 saints obtained in this space, no one knew. After they returned, they kept this experience a secret. Even their closest disciples didn't know about it. After the 5 saints passed away, there was a secret rumor among the cultivators in Yunzhong that the 5 saints obtained a distant past spiritual treasure, so they rushed into the deification realm in one fell swoop. Of course, this was only a rumor. What the 5 saints obtained in this wonderful place was all speculation. After the 5 saints left, no one could find this space again. Some people said that this spatial rift was originally unstable, so after the 5 saints came out, it collapsed on its own. Some people also said the 5 saints hid it. Which is the answer? Does Senior want to guess? At this point, Xiaoshen looked at Emo Tienga with a meaningful smile. Seeing his expression, Emo Tienga smiled faintly and said, "Of course it's the second one. Otherwise, why would you mention these 5 holy artifacts?" Xiaoshen nodded. Correct. Among our group, it's the second answer. The 5 saints work together to seal this wonderful space. Unless one knows the method to open it, no one can enter. At this point, he looked at Emo Tienga. Senior should have guessed it, right? The 5 magic weapons left behind are said to be the keys to this mysterious space. I see. If this was the case, it could explain why the 5 saints passed down these 5 holy artifacts. In fact, whether they were powerful or not was secondary. What was important was that these 5 holy artifacts could open that wonderful space. However, Xiaoshen emphasized, this matter is only a rumor. As for what the truth is, no one knows for a long time. Even if someone knows, there's no way to prove it. Because aside from the Heavenly Demon Tower and the inescapable net, only a few people know what the other 3 holy artifacts are. Oh? Could it be that you also don't know what your Juyin sect's founder passed down? I don't know. Xiaoshen shook his head decisively. Therefore, whether this rumor is true or false, Junior also doesn't know. Senior should just take it as gossip and listen to it. Emo Tienga nodded to show that she understood. She then said, in that case, the reason why so many cultivators from Yunzhong rushed to the Heavenly Demon Tower wasn't only because they were afraid devil cultivators would obtain it and greatly increase their power, but also because of this rumor? Probably. Xiaoshen didn't give a definite answer. I don't know about the rumors in other cultivation groups. Emo Tienga thought for a while, then stood up with a smile. I understand. Thank you for telling me this. Whether it's true or false, I'll just take it as an interesting story. That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.